My name is Jaylani, and I live with my husband, Theodore. We run a restaurant called Sunflower, which my grandfather took care of for many years. It's a popular place with many regular customers who have loved it for a long time. Sadly, my grandfather had cancer but didn't let it stop him from working at Sunflower. Even when he was very sick, he served delicious food and smiled while chatting with the customers. Surrounded by family, he passed away peacefully. He left me, his granddaughter, in charge of the restaurant. Knowing his time was near, he wrote a will with clear instructions about what to do with the restaurant. After my grandfather's passing, I decided to take over Sunflower. Fortunately, the customers kept coming, and the employees continued to work hard. I had watched my grandfather cook all my life, so I felt confident I could make the same tasty dishes. The regulars were happy and told me, "This tastes just like your grandfather's cooking. It feels like he's still here." Sunflower was doing well, just like when my grandfather was alive, and I was more motivated than ever. However, since my grandfather died, my husband began to feel unhappy. He thought a man should own the restaurant and didn't understand why it was in my name. I told him, "I'm his granddaughter, so it belongs to me. We're running it together, so it doesn't really matter." It seemed my husband wanted to be the owner himself and sometimes expressed his frustration, but I was the one who cooked, while he handled the cash register, deliveries, and shopping. I felt that an owner who couldn't cook didn't really fit. I could have been more flexible, but I didn't want to go against my grandfather's wishes. One busy day at the restaurant, my husband's younger brother visited. He hadn't been around for a while and was known to be a bit of a troublemaker. He had left last year to find a job but came back after quitting. My husband was happy to see him, but I found him hard to deal with. In our hometown, I heard that an old man had passed away, and my brother-in-law joked, "So, your wife is running the shop now? That's hilarious." He laughed loudly, not noticing the annoyed looks from the customers. I found it hard to engage with him and decided to ignore his comments since we were family. He then asked if his meal was free, saying, "Since we're family, right?" I reluctantly agreed, and he ate a huge meal, drank beer, and left without paying. That's how unreasonable he was. Our relatives came to the restaurant too, but they always paid. I told my husband, "It's not fair to let only your brother eat for free. Please charge him next time." My husband responded, "It's fine. He doesn't have money. It's okay to give him a break." He seemed to side with his brother. After that, my brother-in-law came to the restaurant regularly and ate without paying every time. I warned my husband, but he wouldn't listen. My insistence made my husband grumpy, and we started to argue more. My brother-in-law began visiting even more often, and each time, he whispered with my husband in the back of the kitchen. I suspected they were talking badly about me. I tried to focus on my cooking while stealing glances at them. One day, my brother-in-law said to my husband, "Can't we make this restaurant yours, bro? The name is in your wife's name, but it's in a good location with many customers. Let's make it your restaurant and keep all the profits. It must be hard being under your wife's thumb." My brother-in-law was trying to take advantage of the problems in our marriage to get my husband on his side. They started plotting something together. The next day was our restaurant's day off, and my husband left early, leaving me alone. Even though it was my day off, I remembered that the kitchen was messy, so I decided to go to the restaurant and spend the day cleaning up. While cleaning, I tried to open the restaurant door and found it unlocked. I thought I must have forgotten to lock it the day before, so I hurried inside. To my surprise, I found my husband and brother-in-law there. "Oh, you're here. I didn't expect to see you both since it's our day off. What are you doing?" I asked. They smirked as if they were hiding something. "Actually, we need to talk," my husband said. "Since you took over the restaurant, you've been acting too proud, and it's bothering us." "I'm not being proud," I replied, feeling frustrated. "Yes, you are," my brother-in-law chimed in. "You're happy because the restaurant is doing well." "What are you trying to say?" I asked, feeling confused. They spoke to me like they were mocking me, which only made me angrier. Then, my husband pulled out some documents and spread them on the table. "I'm sick of your attitude. Let's get a divorce," he said, surprising me with a filled-out divorce application. "Huh? What do you mean?" I stammered, unable to understand what was happening. My first thought was about the restaurant. I knew it would be hard to run it alone after a divorce, especially with only a few employees. "This is too sudden. I don't understand," I exclaimed. "It would be hard for me to keep the restaurant running alone." "We're going to buy this restaurant from you and start fresh," my husband said. "We want you to leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This restaurant was protected by my grandfather. The profits are good enough. We should keep running it for the customers. So, you don't plan to grow? This restaurant will go out of business if you don't do something. I want to start a new restaurant, no matter what, he insisted. I realized my husband had been influenced by his brother. Well, we'll buy this restaurant for whatever price you want, my brother-in-law said. We'll earn it back quickly, so any price is fine. I couldn't stand their bullying any longer. Alright, if that's the case, I'll sell it for $50,000, but please wait for 2 weeks while I prepare the divorce papers and the contract, and during those 2 weeks, neither of you should come to the restaurant. When I said I was selling the restaurant, they were excited, not realizing I had my own reasons. In the meantime, I managed to run the restaurant by myself. Where's your husband? A customer asked. Well, we're actually getting a divorce, I replied. What, so suddenly? Will you be running Sunflower alone then? No, my husband is buying the restaurant, and I'll be leaving in 2 weeks. The customers were surprised and genuinely disappointed when they heard the news, but I quickly handed out flyers I had prepared, which calmed their worries. 2 weeks later, I presented the contract to sell the restaurant and the divorce papers to my husband. There are no complaints about this, right? I asked as he signed the contract. $50,000, huh? I'll transfer the money to your account right now, he replied, sounding pleased. Now this is my shop, he said, looking happy alongside his brother. While they celebrated, I packed up my things and left the restaurant. I was excited to see what they would do next. My ex-husband and brother-in-law immediately took over running the restaurant. We've explained the situation to the employees, they said. Even without Jaylani, the shop should run fine. Alright, let's make some money. They prepared enthusiastically for the day, but when 10 o'clock came, the usual opening time, things didn't go as planned. Why aren't the customers coming? My ex-husband wondered. The usual crowd was missing, and the employees, who were always reliable, weren't there either. He tried calling them, but no one answered. They had never faced this situation before, and panic set in. My ex-husband noticed a regular customer walking by and called out, "Hey, you're our customer, right?" Yeah, I've been worried because you haven't opened yet. What's going on?" The customer replied. "Come on in," my ex-husband urged, trying to sound welcoming. "Didn't you say your wife quit?" "I came here for her cooking, so I might not come anymore," the customer said. "Don't say that. We'll definitely serve something delicious," he insisted, forcing the customer to step inside. The customer reluctantly entered and looked at the menu. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Since I'm the owner now, I decided to change the menu completely," my ex-husband said. The traditional sunflower set meals were gone, replaced by items with foreign names that were hard to understand, which made the customer less enthusiastic. "I'll have this steak," the customer finally decided. Understood, my ex-husband and brother-in-law started cooking with excitement. The customer, who had never seen my ex-husband cook before, waited anxiously. "Hey, is it ready yet?" the customer asked after a long wait. "Sorry for the wait," my ex-husband replied. Finally, after 40 minutes, the meal was ready. When the steak was served, the customer was shocked. There were only 3 small pieces of meat on the plate. The outside was burnt, and the inside was raw. There was no sauce, just a bowl of bread and soup. "We used high-quality ingredients," my ex-husband explained, "so we only used salt and pepper for seasoning. We cooked it to bring out the aroma on the outside and enjoy the rare inside." The customer didn't touch the steak, which looked like a failed dish at first glance. Upon closer inspection, the soup seemed to be instant. "I'm sorry, but I can't eat this," the unhappy customer said, standing up to leave. My ex-husband was shocked that not a single bite was taken. "Customer, you still have to pay. That will be $30, he demanded. $30? You're joking. I can't pay for this awful meal," the furious customer shouted before storming out of the restaurant. My ex-husband and his brother were stunned by what had just happened. They quickly realized they were in trouble. Neither my ex-husband, who rarely cooked, nor his freeloading brother could run a restaurant successfully. They should have known better, but they were too focused on making money. From that point on, no customers came to Sunflower under their management. Meanwhile, I had started a new restaurant in a different location, called Sunflower 2. The employees from the original Sunflower joined me. This new shop was also inherited from my grandfather. He had worried about the aging Sunflower and had planned to build a new place in a different location. He wanted to announce the new restaurant once it was finished, but he passed away before it was completed. Now, it was entrusted to me. I hadn't told my ex-husband about this new restaurant during the 2 weeks I handed over Sunflower. I promoted Sunflower too, and many regular customers who wanted to eat my food followed me. Thanks to that, the restaurant was busy right from the start. With the $50,000 I received from my ex-husband, I was able to hire a few part-time workers and increase salaries. I began offering my original dishes and created menus for younger people, including baby food for small children. This attracted a lot of attention and brought in more families. While keeping my grandfather's flavors, I was growing the restaurant to fit modern tastes. The daily hustle gave me a sense of fulfillment. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his brother were struggling at the old Sunflower. They had borrowed a large amount of money to pay me $50,000 and were now receiving demand letters. "What are we going to do about this?" my ex-husband said, panicking. "You're the one who suggested this, so figure it out," his brother complained, holding his head in his hands. Then, he had an idea. "I've got a great plan," he exclaimed. Suddenly, the two of them showed up at my busy restaurant during lunchtime. "Jaylani, please help us," my brother-in-law shouted loudly, despite the packed restaurant. "My brother hurt his arm and can't cook anymore. We'll give the old restaurant back. Could you return the money as well? You took over the old restaurant and signed the contract. You need to take responsibility and make it work." I brushed off his plea and turned to return to my work when my ex-husband appeared behind him, looking pained. "Jaylani," he began, thinking my ex-husband was being overly dramatic. I was about to turn back to the kitchen when the restaurant became noisy. "Whoa, what's that? Looks painful. Is he okay?" I heard customers whispering. I turned to see my ex-husband, and I was shocked to see his fist covered in a large bruise. "Are you really injured?" I asked. "That's what I've been saying," he replied. "Then go to the hospital right now," I said, quickly calling a taxi to send him. During my lunch break, I went to the hospital to check on him. When I arrived, he was just coming out, apparently finished with his examination. As I tried to ask what had happened, he and his brother avoided my gaze and hurried off. Their behavior made me suspicious, so I went to the hospital reception. "Excuse me, I'm looking for a man named Theodore. He was here for an examination," I said. "Please wait a moment," the receptionist replied, checking the records, but she looked puzzled. "There's no record of such a consultation. Perhaps he went to a different hospital," she said. Realizing my ex-husband hadn't received any examination, I remembered how quickly they had run away and felt they were hiding something. I quickly set off to pursue them. A few minutes later, I spotted my ex-husband and brother-in-law walking. I stopped the car, grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and called out to him. "I knew it. The bruise is gone," I exclaimed. They tried to run, but I used all my strength to stop them. Seeing my angry expression, they quickly calmed down. "Why is the bruise gone? You weren't injured after all," I asked. "Running a restaurant is hard," my ex-husband admitted. "Old Sunflower hardly gets any customers, so we can't make money to pay back our debts. That's why I pretended to be injured and said I couldn't continue with the restaurant. I thought I could get some money back." "You were trying to deceive me with such a childish lie," I replied, letting go of them. "Don't involve me in your affairs from now on. You two figure out what to do with that restaurant." I got back in my car and returned to my restaurant. Through the mirror, I could see them hanging their heads in shame, and it made me feel a bit sorry for them. After that, they quickly put Sunflower up for sale. I think they made that decision to repay their debts, but due to the building's age, they struggled to find a buyer. They received a flood of debt collection letters and were working around the clock. It seemed this life suited them, having thrown away something precious because of their greed. As for me, my newly renovated restaurant was thriving even more than before, with sales doubling. One of my regular customers offered to apprentice with me, so now I have a disciple. I often remind him that running a restaurant is not as easy as my ex-husband thought. I want to continue carrying on my grandfather's legacy for the foreseeable future.
The words sliced through the air like a knife, cutting deep into my heart. "Your mother was my first mistake," my father Harvey declared at Mom's funeral. His arm was wrapped around a glamorous, much younger woman, and his voice carried an unmistakable note of disdain. I stood there, frozen in disbelief. The room fell silent, a collective gasp hanging in the air. Aunt Diane's hand tightened on my shoulder, a futile attempt at comfort. "Dad," I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing? He turned to me, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. Laura, meet Candace. She's my new beginning. Candace, all perfect teeth and bottle blonde hair, gave a little wave. So sorry for your loss, she cooed, not sounding sorry at all. I felt my blood begin to boil. Your new beginning? At Mom's funeral? Harvey shrugged, seemingly oblivious to the horrified stares from our relatives and friends. No time like the present, sweetheart. Your mother would have wanted me to move on. Move on? I sputtered, my voice rising. It's been 3 days, Dad. 3 days. Aunt Diane stepped forward, her face a mask of barely contained fury. Harvey, this is completely inappropriate. I think you should leave. Oh, come on, Diane, Harvey scoffed. Don't be such a prude. Elizabeth's gone, and life goes on. Something inside me snapped. I strode forward, my grief momentarily eclipsed by rage. Do you even understand the situation right now? I demanded, my voice trembling. This is Mom's funeral, your wife's funeral, and you're parading around your girlfriend, Candace supplied helpfully, earning a withering glare from me. Harvey's expression hardened. What? It's a new beginning for me. Elizabeth and I hadn't been happy for years. You know that, Laura. I recoiled as if I'd been slapped. So that makes it okay to disrespect her memory? To disrespect us? My father's eyes narrowed. Us? There is no us, Laura. Your mother's gone and you're a grown woman. It's time we all moved on with our lives. Aunt Diane intervened again, her voice tight with anger. Harvey, that's enough. You need to leave. Now. As Harvey turned to go, dragging a slightly bewildered Candace with him, I found my voice again. Dad, I called out, causing him to pause at the door. Don't bother coming back, ever. He looked back at me, a flicker of something. Regret? Defiance, crossing his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold mask. Suit yourself, he said, and walked out. The moment the door closed behind him, the room erupted into shocked murmurs. I felt myself swaying, the weight of what had just happened crashing down on me. Aunt Diane's arms were around me in an instant. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured. I'm so sorry. I clung to her, feeling like a little girl again. How could he, Aunt Diane? How could he do this to Mom, to me? She stroked my hair, her voice soothing. Your father, he's always been selfish, Laura, but this is a new low, even for him. Uncle Robert appeared at our side, his kind face creased with concern. Laura, honey, why don't we get you some air? I nodded numbly, allowing them to guide me out of the stuffy room and into the cool evening air. As we stepped outside, I caught sight of Harvey's car pulling away, Candace's laughter drifting back to us. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The shock and grief were still there, but now they were joined by something else, a burning desire for justice, for revenge. He can't get away with this, I said, my voice low and determined. I won't let him. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert exchanged a worried glance. Laura, Aunt Diane began cautiously, I know you're hurting, but no, I cut her off. He's gone too far this time. He's wrecked our family for the last time. I turned to face them. My jaw set. I'm going to make him pay for what he's done to Mom, to all of us. As the words left my mouth, I saw the concern in their eyes deepen. But I didn't care. In that moment, standing outside my mother's funeral while my father drove off with his new girlfriend, I made a vow. Harvey Miller was going to regret the day he decided to betray us. And I, Laura Miller, was going to be the one to make sure of it. The boxes felt heavier than they should as I lugged them into Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert's guest room. Each one was filled with memories of a life I was leaving behind, a life that had shattered like glass at my mother's funeral. Need any help, sweetheart? Aunt Diane's voice floated up the stairs. I'm okay, I called back, but my voice cracked, betraying me. Footsteps on the stairs, and then Aunt Diane was there, her arms around me. I melted into her embrace, feeling like a little girl again. Oh, Laura, she murmured, stroking my hair. It's okay to not be okay, you know. I pulled back, wiping my eyes. I can't believe he did this, that he's just gone. Aunt Diane's face hardened. Your father made his choice, Laura, and it wasn't us, it wasn't you. A knock at the door interrupted us. Uncle Robert poked his head in, his kind eyes crinkling with concern. Everything all right in here? I managed a weak smile. Getting there. He came in, carrying a tray with steaming mugs. Thought you ladies might need some tea. It's your mom's favorite blend, Laura. The scent hit me, and suddenly I was back in our kitchen, Mom laughing as she poured us both a cup. The tears came then, hot and fast. "Oh, honey," Aunt Diane said, pulling me close again. "Let it out. It's okay." Uncle Robert set the tray down and joined us, his strong arms encircling us both. We stayed like that for a long moment, their love surrounding me like a warm blanket. Finally, I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "Thank you," I said softly, "both of you. I don't know what I'd do without you." Aunt Diane squeezed my hand. "You're family, Laura. This is what family does." "Real family," I said, a hint of bitterness creeping into my voice. Uncle Robert's face grew serious. "Laura, about your father?" "He's not my father," I cut in, surprising myself with the vehemence in my voice. "Not anymore. My only father figure is you, Uncle Robert." A look passed between Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert, a mix of concern and something else. "Hope? We're here for you, Laura," Uncle Robert said gently. "Whatever you need." I nodded, feeling a sudden surge of determination. "What I need is to start over, to build a new life without him." Aunt Diane smiled, a fierce pride in her eyes. "And that's exactly what you're going to do, starting right now." Over the next few days, I threw myself into settling into my new home. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert gave me space when I needed it, but were always there with a hug or a cup of tea when the grief hit hard. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Aunt Diane broached a subject I'd been avoiding. "Laura, honey," she began cautiously, "have you thought about what you want to do with your mom's things?" I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. I hadn't really. Uncle Robert reached over and patted my hand. "There's no rush, sweetheart. We just thought you might want to go through some of it, maybe find some things to keep here." I nodded slowly, the idea taking root. That might be nice, actually. The next day we drove to my old house. As we pulled up, I saw a familiar car in the driveway. My stomach clenched. "Is that—" Aunt Diane's voice trailed off. Before I could answer, the front door opened. Harvey stepped out, Candace trailing behind him. "Laura," he called, his voice jovial as if nothing had happened. "I was hoping you'd stop by. We need to talk about the house." I felt my blood begin to boil. "We don't need to talk about anything," I spat. Harvey's face darkened. "Now, listen here." But Aunt Diane was already out of the car, placing herself between us. "Harvey," she said, her voice ice-cold, "you need to leave. Now." As they argued, I stood there, trembling with rage and grief. This house, my childhood home, was now tainted by his presence, by his betrayal. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let him take this from me, too. I wouldn't let him destroy one more piece of my mother's memory. "I'm keeping the house," I declared, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "It's mine now. And you? You're not welcome here, ever again." I was just settling into my new routine at Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert's when the first cracks in Harvey's perfect new life began to show. It started with a frantic phone call one evening. "Laura, please, I need your help." Harvey's voice crackled through the speaker, desperation evident. I felt my jaw clench. "What do you want?" "It's Candace," he said, his voice breaking. "She's left me, cleaned out my bank account and disappeared." A cold satisfaction washed over me. "And how is that my problem?" "Laura, please, I'm your father." "No," I cut him off, my voice as sharp as a knife. "My only father figure is Robert. You made your choice, Harvey. Now live with it." I hung up, my hand shaking slightly. Aunt Diane appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Everything okay, honey?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just taking out the trash." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove that I didn't need Harvey or his drama. But fate had other plans. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I ran into my grandfather, James, at the local coffee shop. His face was grim as he motioned me over. "Laura," he said, his voice low, "there's something you should know. It's about your father." My stomach clenched. "What's he done now?" James sighed heavily. "He's been embezzling from the company. We've got proof. I'm firing him today." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I knew Harvey was selfish, but this was a new low. "I'm so sorry, Grandpa," I whispered. He patted my hand. "It's not your fault, dear. But I thought you should hear it from me first." As if on cue, a commotion erupted outside. We turned to see Harvey being escorted out of the family business building across the street, his face red with rage. "You can't do this to me," he shouted. "I built this company." My grandfather stood, his face set in stone. "Excuse me, Laura. I need to handle this." I watched as he strode across the street, every inch the family patriarch. "Harvey," his voice boomed, silencing the growing crowd. "You've been an embarrassment to this company and this family for far too long. It ends now." Harvey's eyes locked with mine through the coffee shop window. The desperation I saw there sent a chill down my spine. That night, as I recounted the day's events to Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Harvey. Pleas for help, promises to change, threats of revenge, each more unhinged than the last. "You need to block his number," Uncle Robert said firmly. I nodded, my finger hovering over the block button. But something stopped me, a morbid curiosity perhaps, or maybe a lingering shred of daughterly concern. "I want to see how far he'll fall," I admitted, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert exchanged a worried glance. "Laura," Aunt Diane began gently, "I understand you're angry, but revenge isn't the answer." I looked up at her, feeling a surge of determination. "This isn't about revenge, Aunt Diane. It's about justice. For Mom, for me, for everyone he's hurt." As if to punctuate my words, a loud crash echoed from outside. We rushed to the window to see Harvey's car swerving down the street, thus narrowly missing parked vehicles. "Oh my God," Aunt Diane gasped, "he's drunk." We watched in horror as the car careened around the corner, tires screeching. The sound of impact came moments later, followed by the wail of sirens. In that moment, staring at the chaos Harvey had wrought, I felt something shift inside me. The last vestiges of daughterly affection crumbled away, replaced by a steely resolve. "He's made his bed," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now he can lie in it." As we waited for news of the accident, I realized that this was just the beginning. Harvey's downfall was picking up speed, and I found myself oddly eager to see where it would lead. The game had changed, and I was no longer just a pawn in Harvey's selfish schemes. I was ready to become the architect of his undoing. The weeks following Harvey's drunk driving incident were a blur of police reports and hushed family conversations. I thought I'd seen the last of him. But I couldn't have been more wrong. It started with a text message. "I need to see you, Laura, please." I ignored it, of course. Then came the emails, the voicemails, each more desperate than the last. I blocked his number, but somehow he always found a way through. One evening, as I was leaving work, I spotted a familiar figure lurking near my car. My heart raced as I recognized Harvey, looking disheveled and wild-eyed. "Laura," he called out, stumbling towards me. "Please, just talk to me." I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking. "Stay away from me, Harvey. I mean it." He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "I'm your father. You can't just cut me out of your life." As I wrenched free, anger surging through me. "Watch me," I spat, jumping into my car and speeding away, leaving him shouting in the parking lot. That night, I paced in Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert's living room, recounting the incident. "This has gone too far," Uncle Robert said, his face grim. "We need to get a restraining order." Aunt Diane nodded, pulling me into a hug. "We'll protect you, sweetheart, whatever it takes." But as the days passed, Harvey's desperation seemed to grow. He showed up at my favorite coffee shop, my gym, even outside Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert's house. It was like he was everywhere, a constant shadow looming over my life. The final straw came during a family dinner at my grandparents' house. We were just sitting down to eat when the doorbell rang. Grandpa James answered it, and I heard Harvey's slurred voice. "Where is she? Where's my daughter?" I froze, my fork clattering to the plate. Aunt Diane squeezed my hand as raised voices echoed from the foyer. "You're not welcome here, Harvey," Grandpa James said firmly. "Leave now, or I'm calling the police." "You can't keep her from me," Harvey shouted. Laura, I know you're in there." Something in me snapped. I stood up, ignoring the protests of my family, and marched to the front door. "What do you want?" I demanded, facing Harvey for the first time in weeks. He looked terrible. Unshaven, clothes rumpled off, eyes bloodshot. "Laura," he said, his voice breaking. "I need your help. Candace, she took everything. I've got nothing left." For a moment I felt a flicker of pity. Then I remembered everything he'd done, every cruel word and selfish action. "You've got nothing left because you threw it all away," I said coldly. "You chose this, Harvey. Now live with it." His face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" He lunged forward, but Grandpa James and Uncle Robert were there in an instant, holding him back. "That's it," Grandpa James growled. "I'm calling the police." As they wrestled Harvey away from the door, he shouted, "You'll regret this, Laura. I'll make you pay." The door slammed shut, muffling his threats. I stood there, shaking, as Aunt Diane wrapped her arms around me. "It's okay," she murmured. "You're safe now." But I didn't feel safe. I felt angry, furious. This man, who was supposed to be my father, had terrorized me, stalked me, and now threatened me. And for what? Because I refused to enable his selfish behavior? In that moment, something hardened inside me. I turned to my family, my voice steady and cold. "I want to press charges," I said, "for harassment, stalking, everything. I want to make sure he can never do this to anyone else again." Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert exchanged a look, then nodded. "We'll support you, whatever you decide," Uncle Robert said. As we waited for the police to arrive, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about making sure Harvey faced consequences for his actions, once and for all. "He's wrecked enough lives," I told Aunt Diane, my resolve strengthening with each word. "It's time to put an end to this for good." Little did I know, this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The real battle was just beginning. The restraining order against Harvey brought a temporary sense of peace, but it also ignited a fire within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more I needed to do. Not just for myself, but for Mom's memory. That's when the idea hit me. I'd use my graphic design skills to create a public art project dedicated to Mom. It would be my way of honoring her, of showing the world the amazing woman she was, the woman Harvey had tried so hard to erase. I threw myself into the project, working late into the night. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert were supportive, but I could see the worry in their eyes. "Don't let this consume you, Laura," Aunt Diane cautioned one evening. "Your mother wouldn't want that." I nodded, but inside, I knew this was something I had to do. It was more than just art. It was my way of fighting back. As the project took shape, it started to gain attention. Local newspapers ran stories, and soon, a reporter from the city's major news station reached out for an interview. The day of the interview, I stood in front of my creation, a massive mural depicting Mom's life, full of color and joy. The reporter, Sarah, smiled warmly as the cameras rolled. "Laura, this is truly breathtaking," she said. "What inspired you to create this?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "My mother was an incredible woman," I began. "She faced so many challenges, but she never lost her spark. This mural is my way of ensuring her light continues to shine." Sarah nodded encouragingly. "And your father? How does he feel about this project?" The question caught me off guard. I hesitated, then decided to be honest. "My father, he's not a part of my life anymore. But my mother will forever be my inspiration." As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a mistake. Harvey might be out of my life, but he was still out there, watching. And I just poked the bear. Sure enough, the next day as I arrived at the mural site to continue work, I found it vandalized. Red paint was splashed across Mom's face, and crude words were scrawled at the bottom. My heart sank as I read them. "Lies and slander, HM." I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. All that work, all that love, destroyed in an act of petty revenge. But as I knelt there, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who'd ever been hurt by someone like Harvey, every child who'd had to watch their parent tear apart their family. I stood up, wiping my tears away. "You won't win," I whispered, determination stealing my voice. "Not this time." I called Aunt Diane, my voice shaking but resolute. "I need your help," I said. "We're going to rebuild this mural, bigger and better than before, and we're going to tell the whole truth about Mom, about Harvey, about everything." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Aunt Diane's voice came through, strong and sure. "We're with you, Laura, all the way." As word spread about the vandalism, something incredible happened. People from all over the community came forward, offering help, supplies, and their own stories of resilience. The project was no longer just about Mom. It had become a symbol of hope for everyone who'd ever faced adversity. Standing in front of the half-ruined mural, surrounded by volunteers eager to help rebuild, I made a decision. This wasn't just about exposing Harvey anymore. It was about reclaiming our narrative, about showing the world that love and community could triumph over cruelty and selfishness. "Let's get to work," I said, picking up a paintbrush. As we began to restore the mural, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced in years. Harvey had tried to silence us, to erase our story. But with every brushstroke, we were writing a new chapter, one he couldn't touch. The battle was far from over, but for the first time I truly believed we could win. And I was ready to fight with everything I had. The night of the award ceremony should have been a triumph. My public art project had taken on a life of its own, inspiring others to share their stories of resilience. The local arts council was honoring me for outstanding community impact. It felt like a vindication of everything I'd been through, a sign that I was finally moving past Harvey's shadow. I stood at the podium, heart racing as I surveyed the crowd. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert beamed from the front row, pride radiating from their faces. I took a deep breath, ready to begin my speech. "Thank you all for this incredible honor," I started. "This project began as a tribute to my mother, but it's become so much more." A commotion at the back of the room cut me off. My blood ran cold as I recognized the voice. "That's my daughter up there," Harvey bellowed, stumbling down the aisle. "My flesh and blood," murmurs rippled through the audience. I gripped the podium, knuckles white, willing myself to stay calm. "Sir, you need to leave." A security guard approached Harvey, but he shoved past. "Laura," Harvey called out, his eyes wild and desperate. "Tell them who I am. Tell them I'm your father." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. I could feel the weight of their stares, the curiosity, the judgment. In that moment, I knew I had a choice. I could shrink away, let Harvey's drama overshadow everything I'd accomplished, or I could stand my ground. I straightened my spine, looked Harvey directly in the eye, and spoke into the microphone. "You're not my father," I said, my voice steady and clear. "You lost that right a long time ago." Harvey's face contorted with rage. "How dare you?" he snarled. "After everything I've done for you." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Everything you've done? You mean abandoning Mom and me? Showing up drunk at her funeral with your girlfriend? Stalking me and vandalizing my work?" Gasps echoed through the room. Harvey lunged forward, but Uncle Robert was there in an instant, blocking his path. "That's enough, Harvey," he said firmly. But Harvey wasn't done. He turned to the crowd, desperation etched on his face. "She's lying," he shouted. "I'm a good father. I just need a little help, a little money to get back on my feet. Laura, please." I felt a hand on my arm and turned to see Aunt Diane beside me, her eyes blazing with protective fury. "You want the truth, Harvey?" she said, her voice ringing out. "Let's tell them everything. How you cheated on your wife for years. How you drained the family savings for your gambling addiction. How you've tried to sabotage Laura's career at every turn because you can't stand to see her succeed where you failed." The room erupted into shocked whispers. Harvey's face drained of color as he realized the extent of his exposure. "You're lying," he stammered, but the conviction had left his voice. I stepped forward, my voice trembling but determined. "No, Harvey, you're the liar. You've lied to everyone, including yourself, for years, but it ends now." Security guards finally reached Harvey, grasping his arms to escort him out. As they led him away, he turned back, his eyes meeting mine one last time. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You're nothing without me." The doors slammed shut behind him, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. I stood there, shaking, feeling as if I might collapse at any moment. But then something extraordinary happened. Someone in the audience began to clap, then another and another. Soon the entire room was on its feet, applauding not just for my art but for the strength it took to stand up to Harvey. As the ovation washed over me, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Relief, exhaustion, a hint of lingering fear, but also hope. For the first time, I truly believed that I could break free from Harvey's toxic influence. But as I looked at Aunt Diane's worried face, I knew this wasn't over. Harvey's threat hung in the air, a promise of more chaos to come. I'd won this battle, but the war was far from over, and I had a sinking feeling that Harvey's next move would be his most desperate and dangerous yet. The days following the award ceremony were a blur of congratulations and concerned looks. I tried to focus on the positive, on the community's support, but Harvey's final threat echoed in my mind. I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't go quietly. It was a rainy Tuesday when the other shoe dropped. I was at work when Aunt Diane called, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Laura, you need to come home. Now." I rushed back to find Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert huddled at the kitchen table, faces grim. A letter lay between them. "It's from Harvey," Aunt Diane said, pushing it towards me. My hands shook as I read. Harvey had hit rock bottom, losing his apartment and what few friends he had left, but instead of taking responsibility, he'd decided to lash out. The letter was filled with threats to reveal old family secrets, things that could destroy not just our reputation, but Grandpa James's business as well. "He's bluffing," I said, but the tremor in my voice betrayed my uncertainty. Uncle Robert shook his head. "Some of what he's threatening to reveal, it's true, Laura. Things from before you were born, things we never wanted to burden you with." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What things?" Aunt Diane took a deep breath. "Your grandfather. He wasn't always the upstanding businessman he is now. There were some questionable deals in the early days, nothing illegal, but ethically murky." "And Harvey knows about this?" They nodded. "He was involved in some of it," Uncle Robert admitted. "That's partly why your grandfather kept him in the company for so long, despite everything." I slumped into a chair, my mind reeling. "So what do we do?" "We fight," Aunt Diane said, her voice steely. "Harvey's a cancer on this family, Laura. It's time we removed him completely." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. We consulted lawyers, gathered evidence of Harvey's past misdeeds, and prepared for the worst. I threw myself into the work, determined to end this once and for all. But Harvey wasn't done. He started showing up at my workplace, at my favorite cafes, always just on the edge of violating the restraining order. The constant tension was wearing me down. It all came to a head on a sunny Saturday afternoon. I was at the park, working on a new design for my community art project, when I heard his voice. "Still trying to erase me, Laura." I spun around to find Harvey standing there, looking haggard and desperate. "You need to leave," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. He laughed bitterly. "Leave? I've got nowhere left to go, thanks to you and your aunt. But if I'm going down, I'm taking you all with me." He pulled out his phone, waving it at me. "One call, Laura. One call to the press, and everything comes out. Your precious grandfather's shady past, Diane's little indiscretions, all of it." I felt a surge of anger unlike anything I'd ever experienced. This man, who was supposed to protect and love me, was threatening to destroy everything and everyone I cared about. "You're pathetic," I spat. "You think this will fix anything? Make anyone love you?" His face contorted with rage. "Love? I don't need love. I need respect. And if I can't have it, I'll settle for fear." He raised the phone, finger hovering over the call button. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. I saw my whole life, past, present, and future, flash before my eyes. I thought of Mom, of Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert, of the community that had rallied around me. And I made a decision. "Do it," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Call them. Tell them everything, because when you're done, I'll still have a family who loves me. I'll still have a community that supports me. But you'll have nothing." Harvey's hand trembled, his finger still poised over the phone. We stood there, locked in a battle of wills, neither willing to back down. And then, just as he opened his mouth to speak, a voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, Harvey." We both turned to see Aunt Diane striding towards us, her face a mask of determination. And behind her, to my shock, was Grandpa James. The final confrontation was about to begin, and I knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The months following Harvey's final confrontation in the park were a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional upheaval. But as the dust settled, I found myself standing on the other side, stronger and more at peace than I'd ever been. Harvey, unable to face the consequences of his actions, had fled the state. His last-ditch attempt to blackmail the family had backfired spectacularly when Grandpa James decided to come clean about the company's past. It turned out that honesty and a commitment to change were more powerful than any scandal Harvey could have drummed up. As for me, I threw myself into my work with renewed passion. The community art project that had started as a tribute to Mom had blossomed into something much bigger. People from all walks of life were coming together to share their stories of resilience and hope. It was healing, not just for me, but for the entire town. One sunny afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on a new mural, Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert surprised me with a visit. Laura, honey, Aunt Diane began, her eyes twinkling with excitement. We have something to ask you. I set down my paintbrush, curiosity piqued. What is it? Uncle Robert cleared his throat, looking slightly nervous. Well, we know you're an adult and all, but we were wondering if you'd let us officially become your guardians. I blinked, stunned. But I'm 32. Aunt Diane laughed, a warm, rich sound that reminded me so much of Mom. We know, sweetie. It's more symbolic than anything, a way to make official what we already feel in our hearts. Tears welled up in my eyes as the full weight of their offer hit me. This was more than just a legal formality. It was a promise, a commitment to be the family I'd always longed for. Yes, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. Yes, I'd love that. The day of the guardianship ceremony was also Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert's wedding anniversary. As we stood before the judge, I felt a sense of completion, as if the jagged pieces of my life were finally fitting together. After the ceremony, we gathered at home for a celebration. As I watched Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert laughing with friends and family, I slipped away to my room and retrieved a card I'd been working on for weeks. Taking a deep breath, I approached them. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad, I said, handing them the card. Their eyes widened at the words, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Aunt Diane pulled me into a fierce hug, Uncle Robert's arms encircling us both. Oh, Laura, Aunt Diane murmured, her voice thick with tears. We love you so much. As I stood there enveloped in their love, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of losing Mom, the betrayal by Harvey, the struggle to find my place in the world. But through it all, I'd found something precious. A family bound, not by blood, but by choice and love. Later that evening, as the party wound down, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The night air was crisp, stars twinkling overhead. I thought about Mom, hoping she could see how far I'd come. I did it, Mom, I whispered to the sky. I found my way. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment I could almost hear her voice, filled with pride and love. As I turned to go back inside, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was stronger, wiser, and more at peace than I'd ever been. I realized that this wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. Harvey's betrayal had nearly broken me, but it had also set me free. Free to choose my own family, to create my own legacy, to live life on my own terms. I stepped back into the warmth of the house, back into the embrace of my chosen family. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and continue working on my art, continue inspiring others with our story of resilience. But for now, I was content to simply be here, surrounded by love, finally and truly home. As I closed the door behind me, I knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, I was ready to face them. Because now, I had the strength of my past, the love of my present, and the hope of my future, all wrapped up in the family I had found and chosen. This was my happy ending and my new beginning all at once.
The perfect daughter stands at the podium, her voice steady and clear as she delivers her valedictorian speech. My sister Megan, the golden child, speaking about dreams and potential while I grip the edges of my metal folding chair, fighting the wave of nausea that's been my constant companion for weeks. I'm Aubrey, the family disappointment, and I'm about to ruin my sister's perfect moment. The late May heat presses down on the football field where hundreds of parents and students sit in neat rows. Everything about this graduation ceremony screams control and order, exactly how my father, the college administrator, likes it. He's beaming from his place of honor on stage, watching Megan weave her carefully crafted words about future success and family values. My stomach lurches again. I shouldn't have come, but missing my sister's graduation would have given my father another reason to compare us. Why can't you be more like Megan? The words echo in my head as bile rises in my throat. Are you okay? Tom whispers from beside me. You look pale. I try to nod, but the motion makes the world tilt. The pregnancy test hidden in my desk drawer flashes through my mind, both of them actually. Double positive, double trouble. Megan's voice carries across the field. And so, as we stand on the threshold of our futures, I'm going to throw up. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. I stumble to my feet, drawing sharp looks from nearby parents. My mother's eyes find me from her front row seat, her face tightening with familiar disappointment. Aubrey, Tom reaches for my arm, but I'm already moving. I make it 3 steps before my knees buckle, The world spins, voices blur together, and then I'm falling. The last thing I see before everything goes black is my father's face. Not concerned, but angry. Always angry. When I come to, I'm lying on a cot in the nurse's office. The vinyl covering crackles as I shift, and the smell of antiseptic makes my stomach roll again. "What were you thinking?" My father's voice cuts through the fog. He's standing by the door, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "You couldn't even let your sister have one day?" "Robert," my mother says softly, but there's no real protest in her tone. "I'm sorry," I whisper, though I'm not sure what I'm apologizing for. Fainting, being pregnant, or simply existing. "The nurse wants to run some tests," my father continues, his words precise and controlled. "Care to tell us what she might find?" The moment stretches between us like a rubber band about to snap. In my head, I see the next few minutes play out. The revelation, the shock, the inevitable explosion of rage and disappointment. My father's carefully constructed image of our perfect family crumbling because his youngest daughter got knocked up at 19. "I'm pregnant," I say, and the words hang in the air like smoke. My mother makes a small sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a sob. My father's face goes completely still, the way it does right before he explodes. "Who knows?" he demands. "Just Tom. And Ethan, the father, I swallow hard. "He doesn't want anything to do with it." "Of course he doesn't," my father snaps. "This ends now. We'll make arrangements." "No." The word comes out stronger than I expected. "This isn't a discussion, Aubrey. You will not destroy everything we've built, everything your sister has worked for." I sit up slowly, the room swaying slightly. "I'm keeping it." "The hell you are." He steps closer, looming over me. "You're barely more than a child yourself. You have no job, no degree, no future. You will do as I say." Looking into his eyes, I see something I've never noticed before. Fear. Not for me, but for himself. For his reputation, his control, his perfect family facade. "No," I say again. And in that moment, something shifts inside me. A seed of resistance taking root, growing stronger with each beat of my heart. "I won't." His face darkens, and I know what's coming next will change everything. But for the first time in my life, I'm ready for the storm. The drive home feels like a funeral procession. My father's Mercedes leads the way, my mother silent beside him. I'm in the back of Tom's beaten-up Honda, watching the familiar streets blur past, each turn bringing us closer to the confrontation I know is coming. "I can turn around," Tom says quietly. "We could just drive. Keep going until we hit the coast." The offer tempts me more than I want to admit, but running won't solve anything. I learned that lesson watching my Aunt Clara disappear from our lives years ago, leaving nothing but whispered accusations and my father's rage in her wake. Our house looms ahead, all perfect angles and manicured lawns, a prison disguised as a home. Tom pulls up to the curb, and I catch my sister's car already parked in the driveway. Of course Megan would be here. She's probably already planning damage control. "You don't have to do this alone," Tom says. "Yes, I do." I squeeze his hand once before stepping out into the evening air. Inside, voices drift from my father's study. I pause in the hallway, my hand resting unconsciously on my still flat stomach. "She's always been difficult," my mother's voice, strained and tired. "But this ends tonight." My father's tone leaves no room for argument. "I won't have her destroy everything we've built. Maybe if we just..." Megan starts. "Enough!" A sharp crack, his hand hitting his desk. "Your sister has made her choice. Now she'll face the consequences." I step into the doorway, forcing myself to stand straight despite the nausea still lurking at the edges of my consciousness. Don't I get a say in those consequences? 3 heads snap toward me, my father behind his massive desk, my mother perched on the leather sofa, and Megan standing by the window, a perfect family portrait about to shatter. "You lost that right when you decided to throw away your future," my father says. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation, to your sister's career prospects?" "My career prospects?" Megan's voice cracks slightly. "Dad, that's not..." "Of course it is," he cuts her off. "Everything we've worked for. Everything we've sacrificed to maintain our standing in this community. And you? He turns back to me. You just had to play the rebel. Couldn't stand seeing your sister succeed, could you? The accusation hits harder than I expect. This has nothing to do with Megan. Everything in this family has to do with everyone in this family, he snaps. Your mother and I have already made the arrangements. Dr. Phillips owes me a favor. This can all be handled quietly, and we can put this unfortunate incident behind us. No. The word comes out steady, surprising even me. This isn't a discussion, Aubrey. You're right, I say. It's not, because this isn't your choice to make. My mother finally speaks, her voice soft but sharp. You're 19, living under our roof, dependent on our support. What exactly do you think your options are? I'll leave. The words taste like freedom and terror mixed together. And go where? My father laughs, but there's no humor in it. To that boy's house? The one who couldn't even face us today? Robert, my mother warns, but he's building steam now. Or maybe to your Aunt Clara? Following in her footsteps of poor decisions and burned bridges? Something in his tone makes me pause. There's more there. Something raw and personal in the way he spits out Aunt Clara's name. I file it away for later examination. I'll figure it out, I say. But I'm keeping this baby. Then you'll do it without our support. He stands, towering over his desk. No money, no car, no college fund, nothing. Dad, please. Megan steps forward, but he silences her with a look. You have until morning to pack your things, he continues. After that, you're no longer welcome in this house. My mother makes a small sound, quickly stifled. Megan's face has gone pale, her perfect composure cracking around the edges. And in that moment, I see them all clearly. Puppets dancing to my father's tune, too afraid or too broken to cut their strings. Fine, I say, and turn to leave. But at the doorway, I stop. You know what's funny? You're so worried about your reputation, about what people will think. But at least I'm honest about my mistakes. What about yours? I don't wait for his response. As I climb the stairs to my room, I hear the first cracks forming in their perfect facade. My mother's muffled sob, Megan's raised voice, my father's sharp commands for silence. Tomorrow, I'll be gone. But I'm starting to realize that leaving might just be the beginning of something much bigger than a teenage pregnancy scandal. Dr. Phillips's office smells like artificial lavender and judgment. The pamphlets on the coffee table mock me with their cheerful fonts and sanitized language about options and choices. My mother sits 3 chairs away, her spine rigid, checking her watch every 30 seconds as if she could speed time through sheer will. Aubrey Thompson? The nurse's voice carries across the waiting room. I stand, my legs shaking. My mother rises too, but I hold up my hand. I'm going alone. Don't be difficult, she whispers, but I'm already following the nurse down the sterile hallway. Dr. Phillips looks exactly like someone my father would know. Expensive watch, practiced smile, the kind of confidence that comes from never having your authority questioned. He gestures to the examination chair while reviewing my chart. So we're looking at approximately 8 weeks, he says, not really a question. Robert explained the situation. We can take care of this quickly and discreetly. I want to know about the risks. He looks up, surprised. The procedure is very safe. We can have you back home by... All the risks, I interrupt. Long-term complications, future fertility, everything. Something flickers across his face. Annoyance, maybe respect. He sets down the chart. There's always a small chance of complications. In rare cases, scarring can affect future fertility, but given your situation... What situation? My father's reputation? The doctor's carefully neutral expression cracks slightly. Your father is concerned about your future. Sometimes we need to make difficult choices to protect... To protect what? My voice rises. The family name? His position at the college? Tell me, Dr. Phillips, how many other girls has my father sent to you for discreet solutions? His silence tells me everything. I'm not having the procedure, I say, standing. And I think maybe the medical board would be interested in knowing about your arrangement with my father. Miss Thompson. His tone hardens. Think carefully about what you're doing. Your father has influenced a lot of careers in this town, including mine. But he's also ended them. The threat hangs between us, and suddenly I understand exactly how my father maintains his perfect world. How many lives has he shaped or destroyed with his influence? How many secrets are buried under his carefully maintained reputation? I leave without another word, ignoring my mother's questions as I walk straight out of the clinic. The summer air hits me like a wall, and I gulp it down, fighting nausea that has nothing to do with pregnancy. My phone buzzes. A text from Megan. "Where are you? Dad's furious." Another buzz. "Aunt Clara called the house. Dad lost it. Something about James?" My fingers freeze over the screen. James. A name I've never heard before, but it made my father lose control? I save the message just as Tom's car pulls up. "You okay?" he asks as I slide into the passenger seat. "Drive to Aunt Clara's. Your parents won't look for me there. They haven't spoken to her in years." I punch her address into his GPS, the one my mother thought I didn't know about, carefully preserved in an old address book hidden in her desk. What happened in there? I stare out the window, watching the familiar streets of our town transform into unknown territory. I think I just discovered that Dr. Phillips isn't the only one keeping my father's secrets. "Aubrey," Tom's voice is careful. "Are you sure you want to pull this thread? Some secrets stay buried for a reason." "Like James?" The name feels significant on my tongue, though I don't know why. Who's James? I don't know, but my father's reaction to his name tells me he's important. I rest my hand on my stomach, feeling a new kind of strength growing inside me, and Aunt Clara knows why. We turn onto a quiet street lined with modest houses, nothing like my father's carefully maintained mansion. Tom pulls up to a small blue house with wild roses climbing the porch. "Whatever you find out," he says, "it's going to change things. Are you ready for that?" I look at the house, thinking about secrets and lies, about power and control, about the way my father's perfectly constructed world is built on other people's silence. "Yes," I say, opening the car door. "I'm ready to tear it all down." The porch steps creak under my feet as I approach the door, each step taking me further from the life I knew and closer to whatever truth waits behind Aunt Clara's door. I raise my hand to knock, and in that moment, I feel something shift inside me. Not just the baby, but something deeper. Something that tastes like justice. Aunt Clara's kitchen table holds more truth than my father's entire house. The morning light streams through unwashed windows, illuminating a stack of old photographs and newspaper clippings spread before me. My hands shake as I pick up a yellowed hospital record. "James Thompson," I read aloud. "Born with spina bifida, given up for adoption." The date makes my stomach clench. Exactly 25 years ago. "Your father made that decision alone," Aunt Clara says, pouring more coffee into my untouched cup. "Linda was still sedated when he signed the papers. But she never fought it? By the time she found out, Robert had convinced everyone it was for the best. A clean break, he called it." Clara's mouth twists. "Nothing clean about abandoning your child." My phone buzzes again. Another message from Megan. I've been ignoring them all morning, but this one catches my eye. "Dad's calling an emergency family meeting. Says he knows where you are. Please come home." "He can't force me back," I say, more to myself than Clara. "No, but he can make life very difficult." She slides a business card across the table. "James Harrison, that's the name he goes by now. He's giving a speech at the medical conference next month. Your father's conference." The irony hits like a punch to the gut. My perfect, controlling father who threw away his firstborn son will be sitting in the audience while that same son delivers the keynote address on pediatric surgery. Does James know about them? No. Clara's eyes hold something I can't quite read. But maybe he should. A knock at the door makes us both jump. Tom appears in the kitchen doorway, his face tight with worry. "Aubrey, you need to see this." He holds out his phone, showing me a social media post from Megan. It's a carefully worded announcement about her new job at the college, working directly under our father. The comments are full of congratulations, praising the Thompson family legacy. "She's choosing his side," I whisper. "She's choosing survival," Clara corrects. "Just like I did once. Just like your mother still does." Another message pops up, this one from an unknown number. My heart stops when I open it. It's a photo of me entering the abortion clinic yesterday, clearly taken without my knowledge. The caption reads, What would the board think about Dr. Phillips's special arrangements? He's threatening me, I say, showing them the message. Tom's jaw tightens. We should go to the police. With what? My father owns half this town. The realization hits me hard. That's why you left, isn't it, Clara? You knew something. She doesn't answer immediately, instead walking to a locked drawer in her desk. The key shakes slightly in her hand as she removes a thick manila envelope. I kept records, she says finally. Of everything. Every girl your father sent to Phillips, every career he destroyed, every favor called in, including what really happened with James. Why didn't you use them? Because exposure would hurt more than just Robert. All those girls, those families, they've built new lives. Some secrets protect the innocent as much as the guilty. She places the envelope in front of me. But maybe it's time for the right truth to come out. I stare at the envelope, feeling the weight of lives and lies pressing down on me. Through the window, I can see my father's Mercedes pulling up to the curb. He's here, Tham says quietly. Good. I stand, one hand on my stomach, the other gripping the envelope. Let him come. Aubrey, Clara's voice stops me. Remember, revenge and justice aren't always the same thing. I look at the envelope, then at the photo of James speaking at a medical conference. Successful, whole, everything my father tried to throw away. In that moment, I realize what I have to do. No, I agree. Sometimes justice is better. The doorbell rings, its cheerful chime at odds with the tension filling the room. I take a deep breath, feeling my child move within me. Another life my father wanted to erase. But this time, the choice isn't his to make. I head for the door, the envelope secure in my hands, ready to face whatever comes next. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone's perfect world, it's forcing them to face the truth they've spent a lifetime burying. The medical conference program feels heavy in my hands. James Harrison's photo stares back at me. My father's abandoned son, now a celebrated pediatric surgeon. 3 weeks of planning have led to this moment, watching the conference center fill with doctors, administrators, and my father's carefully cultivated network of influence. He's arriving in 10 minutes, Tham says, checking his phone. Security confirmed it. I adjust my visitor's badge, conscious of my growing belly beneath the loose blazer. 4 months pregnant, and already my body betrays secrets I'm not ready to share. Aubrey, Megan's voice makes me freeze. She stands at the entrance to the conference hall, wearing the same expression she used when covering for my teenage rebellions. Dad knows you're here. Good. I hold up the manila envelope from Clara. He should be here for this. You don't understand. Ethan's here too. The name hits like ice water. What? Dad hired him. He's working security. She steps closer, lowering her voice. He knows things, Aubrey, about the baby. My hand instinctively moves to my stomach. Ethan abandoned me the moment I told him about the pregnancy, but of course my father would find a way to weaponize him. Dr. Harrison is entering the building, crackles over the security radio at a nearby guard's belt. Time slows. Through the glass doors, I see James for the first time in person. He walks with a slight limp, the only visible sign of the condition my father deemed unworthy of the Thompson name. Behind him, I spot Ethan in a security uniform, speaking into his radio. Whatever you're planning, Megan whispers. It's not too late to stop. Actually, it is. I pull out my phone, sending the pre-written email to every board member and local news outlet. Because I just sent proof of Dad's arrangement with Dr. Phillips. And in about 30 seconds, James is going to learn who really signed his adoption papers. Megan's face drains of color. You'll destroy everything. No, Dad did that 25 years ago when he threw away his son. The conference hall doors open. James enters, surrounded by admiring colleagues. My father appears from another doorway, his practiced smile faltering when he sees me. Security, he snaps, but Ethan hesitates, looking between us. Sir, Ethan starts. Maybe we should... Now! I step forward, envelope in hand. Hello, James? Or should I say, brother? The room goes silent. James turns, confusion crossing his face. My father moves with surprising speed, but Tom steps between us. Miss Thompson, a security guard approaches. You need to leave. Not before he sees these. I open the envelope, pulling out the adoption papers with my father's signature. 25 years ago, Robert Thompson signed away his firstborn son because he was born with spina bifida, a son who grew up to become one of the country's leading pediatric surgeons. James takes the papers with trembling hands. My father's face contorts with a rage I've never seen before. "You ungrateful!" He starts toward me, but Megan suddenly moves to my side. "It's true," she says, her voice carrying across the stunned audience. "I found the papers in Mom's desk years ago." Phones are out now, recording everything. James stares at the documents, then at our father, his professional composure cracking. "Robert Thompson is your biological father," I continue, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "He abandoned you without your mother's consent, just like he tried to force me to abort my baby to protect his precious reputation." "You're lying," James whispers, but his eyes say he knows it's true. My phone buzzes. News alerts about Dr. Phillips's illegal arrangements with the college administrator. My father's carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. "I can explain," my father starts, but James cuts him off. "Explain what? How you threw away a child because he wasn't perfect? How you're still doing it?" Ethan steps forward, removing his security earpiece. "Sir, I won't help you hurt her again." The room erupts in whispers. My father's network watching his control slip away. But as I look at James's devastated face, at Megan's tears, at the pain rippling through our broken family, I realize revenge tastes different than I imagined. "I didn't do this for revenge," I say, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I did it because some truths need to be told, some lies need to end." My father lunges for the papers in James's hands, but it's too late. The truth, like the child growing inside me, has a life of its own now, and neither of us can be silenced anymore. The college board meeting room feels like a tomb. My father sits at the head of the table, his lawyer whispering in his ear while board members shuffle papers and avoid eye contact. The local news vans outside cast long shadows through the windows. I'm not supposed to be here, but Megan's employee badge got me through security. My sister, now suspended from her position pending investigation, stands in the corner, her perfect posture finally cracking under the weight of everything we've lost. "The board calls Dr. James Harrison," the chairman announces. James enters, walking past me without a glance. Since the conference, he's refused to speak to any of us. I don't blame him. Finding out your biological father abandoned you is one thing. Learning your sister used that truth as a weapon is another. "Dr. Harrison," my father's lawyer begins, "regarding the allegations made about your adoption." "They're not allegations," James's voice cuts through the formal atmosphere. "I've confirmed everything through hospital records. Robert Thompson is my biological father, and he abandoned me without my mother's consent." My father doesn't flinch, but his knuckles whiten against the polished table. "Miss Thompson," the chairman turns to me, "your evidence regarding Dr. Phillips's arrangements, we need to discuss." The boardroom door bursts open. My mother storms in, clutching a familiar manila envelope. My stomach drops. Not the copy I gave James, but the original from Aunt Clara's desk. "Linda," my father warns, but she's already speaking. "These records," she says, her voice trembling, "they're not complete. Clara didn't just keep evidence about Robert's arrangements. She kept everything." The room goes silent. My mother pulls out a document I've never seen before, including proof that she's James's real mother. The world tilts. James stands so quickly his chair crashes backward. "What?" "Clara Thompson is your biological mother," my mother continues. "Robert forced her to give you up, threatened to expose her relationship with a married doctor. He used you to control her, just like he's tried to control all of us." My father's mask finally cracks. "You had no right." "I had every right!" My mother's voice rises. 25 years of secrets, of watching you destroy lives to maintain your precious reputation. And now our daughters. That's enough." My father stands. "This meeting is over." "No," James says quietly. "It's not. Because I'm pressing charges against all of you." The word hits like a physical blow. "James, I never meant..." "To what? Use me for revenge? Destroy my life to punish him?" He gestures at our father. "You're all the same. Playing games with people's lives. Thinking you get to decide what truth deserves to be told." Megan steps forward. "We were trying to help." "Help?" James laughs bitterly. "I had a life, a career, parents who chose me. Now what do I have? A biological father who threw me away, an aunt who's actually my mother, and a sister who used my trauma for her own vendetta. The board members whisper among themselves. My father's lawyer scribbles furiously, and I stand there, feeling my carefully constructed plan crumbling around me. The district attorney's office will be in touch, James says, turning to leave. With all of you. As he walks out, I catch a glimpse of Aunt Clara in the hallway, her face pale and drawn. Our eyes meet briefly before she turns away, following her son into the shadows of truths I never should have unearthed. Well, my father says into the silence, his voice steady again. It seems my daughter's quest for justice has backfired rather spectacularly. He's right. In trying to expose his secrets, I've destroyed more than just his reputation. I've shattered James's life, betrayed Aunt Clara's trust, cost Megan her career, and now face potential legal consequences that could affect my unborn child's future. The baby kicks, as if sensing my despair. Tom's words echo in my head. Sometimes revenge hurts the avenger more than the target. I leave the boardroom without another word, walking past the news vans and reporters, past the familiar buildings where my father once reigned supreme. The truth is out now, but it's not the cleansing fire I imagined. Instead, it's a poison that's touched everyone I meant to protect. In the parking lot, I spot James helping Aunt Clara into his car. They drive away without looking back, leaving me alone with the realization that in my quest for justice, I've become exactly what I hated. Someone who sacrifices others for their own agenda. The worst part isn't the potential charges or the family I've destroyed. It's knowing that somewhere in this wreckage, I lost sight of who I wanted to be. The courthouse steps are crowded with reporters when my father emerges from his hearing. His lawyer shields him from cameras while flashbulbs capture his fallen empire. The great Robert Thompson, facing criminal charges for decades of manipulation and corruption. I watch from across the street, one hand on my swollen belly, the other clutching James's latest press statement. He's become the face of medical ethics reform, turning his pain into purpose, unlike me. Ready? Tom asks beside me. Before I can answer, Aunt Clara's car pulls up. She steps out, looking older than her 42 years, and walks straight toward my father. The reporters surge forward, sensing blood in the water. Robert! Her voice carries across the chaos. We need to talk. My father tries to push past, but she grabs his arm. About Mother's Trust Fund. He freezes. Even from here, I see the color drain from his face. Not here, he hisses. Yes, here. She turns to the cameras. Should I tell them how you really paid for James's adoption? About the money you stole? I move without thinking, crossing the street. Tom calls after me, but I'm already caught in the gravity of this moment. What trust fund? I ask, stepping into the circle of cameras. My father's mask cracks. Aubrey, leave. Your grandmother left everything to Clara. My mother's voice comes from behind me. She emerges from the courthouse looking straight at her husband. But Robert convinced the lawyers she was unstable after her affair, had everything transferred to him instead. You used my inheritance to pay for my own adoption? Clara's laugh is bitter. To buy my silence? The reporter's questions become a roar. My father's lawyer tries to intervene, but it's too late. I protected this family! My father shouts suddenly. Everything I did was to maintain order, to preserve our name. By destroying everyone who didn't fit your perfect image, I step closer. James, Clara, me? You ungrateful! He lunges forward, but someone catches his arm. James. That's enough, father. The word drips with contempt. The board of directors just voted. The medical center is launching a full investigation into every adoption you facilitated through Dr. Phillips. My father's composure shatters completely. You can't... Actually, I can. As the new head of ethics oversight. James turns to Clara, to his mother. With full support from the district attorney's office. The cameras capture everything. My father's defeat, Clara's tears, James's quiet strength. But it's my mother who delivers the final blow. I've filed for divorce, she announces, and I'm testifying about everything. My father lunges again, this time at my mother. I step between them instinctively, protecting her the way she never protected me. He pulls back at the last second, his hand frozen in midair, finally seeing what he's become. You're just like him, He spits at me. Using people's secrets as weapons, destroying lives for revenge. The words hit home, but not in the way he expects. Because he's right, I did become like him, and that's why this has to end differently. No, I say quietly. I'm choosing to be better. That's why I'm dropping the charges against you. The reporters fall silent. James and Clara turn to stare at me. What? My father whispers. I'm having a daughter, I tell him. And I won't teach her that revenge heals anything. The truth is out now. What happens next isn't about destroying you. It's about rebuilding everything you broke. I turn to James and Clara, starting with our real family. My father stands alone on the courthouse steps, surrounded by cameras but finally stripped of his power to control the narrative. The truth has done what revenge never could. Set us all free. Let's go home, I say to no one in particular, and everyone who matters follows. James, Clara, my mother, Megan, Tom. We leave my father to face the consequences of his own choices, not our vengeance. As we walk away, my daughter kicks, and I understand finally what Clara meant about some secrets protecting the innocent. The biggest secret was one I kept from myself. That healing comes not from revenge, but from the courage to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. Clara's garden blooms with late summer roses as I watch James teach my daughter to walk. Her tiny hands grip his fingers while she toddles across the uneven ground, his patience matching her determination. The sight makes my chest ache with something between joy and regret. She has your stubbornness, Megan says, settling beside me on the porch steps. She's different now, softer around the edges, but stronger at her core. The job she found at a women's shelter suits her better than our father's carefully planned career ever did. And your grace, I reply, watching my daughter's careful steps. The screen door creaks behind us. My mother emerges with lemonade, her wedding ring notably absent. The divorce papers arrived yesterday, along with news of my father's plea deal. House arrest instead of prison, his empire reduced to a monitored existence in the same mansion he once ruled. Ethan called again, my mother says quietly. I know. I touch my phone through my pocket, feeling the weight of his unread messages. He wants to meet his daughter, claims he's changed. Maybe he has, but some bridges stay burned. James scoops up my giggling daughter, his slight limp more pronounced after a long day. Someone's ready for her nap, he calls, heading toward us. I'll take her, Clara offers, appearing from her garden. She meets James's eyes, mother and son still navigating their complicated truth. He hands over my daughter with a small smile, their shared features obvious now that we know to look for them. The ethics board approved the new oversight committee, James tells me as Clara disappears inside. We're implementing screening procedures for all adoption cases. No more secret arrangements. And Dr. Phillips? Lost his license. He's cooperating with the investigation. Tom's truck pulls into the driveway, his son Noah waving from the passenger seat. They've become regular fixtures here, helping Clara with house repairs, joining our makeshift Sunday dinners, building something new from the ashes of what burned. Dad asked about you, Megan says suddenly. He wanted to know if you'd bring the baby to see him. The old anger flares, but it's duller now, more like an old scar than an open wound. What did you tell him? That it's not my decision to make. She picks at a loose thread on her sleeve. He's different now, smaller. Sometimes smaller is better, my mother observes. Means there's room to grow. Inside, I hear my daughter's laughter mixing with Clara's soft singing. The sound draws me up, pulling me toward the door, but I pause at the threshold. I got another letter from the support group, I tell them. 3 more families have come forward about forced adoptions. They're asking for help navigating reunions. Are you going to help them? James asks. I think about revenge and justice, about how thin the line between them can be, about my daughter, who will grow up knowing all her family's truths, the beautiful and the ugly ones. Yes, I decide, but not for revenge, for healing. The afternoon light catches the roses, making them glow like tiny flames. Tom and Noah join us on the porch, fitting seamlessly into our patchwork family. My mother pours more lemonade, her hands steady now that she's free. Megan leans against the railing, finally comfortable in her own skin. James watches Clara through the window, their shared pain slowly transforming into understanding. and I stand in the doorway between past and future, knowing that some secrets need to stay buried, while others need the light to heal. My father's perfect world had to burn so something real could grow in its place. My daughter's cry draws me inside, not urgent, but demanding. As I lift her from Clara's arms, she grabs my necklace, the one containing a small photo of all of us at her christening. Her family. Not perfect, not unbroken, but real. "Tell me again," she'll ask someday, "about how our family found each other." And I'll tell her about revenge that turned to redemption, about secrets that became strength, about how sometimes you have to tear everything down to build something true. But mostly, I'll tell her about love, the kind that survives fire and grows back stronger in broken places. Because that's the secret I finally learned. Revenge burns everything, but truth plants gardens.
The screeching of tires and the sickening crunch of metal filled my ears as the world spun around me. In that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. "Rachel, Rachel, can you hear me?" Mark's voice sounded distant, muffled by the ringing in my ears. I tried to respond, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. The taste of copper filled my senses as I struggled to focus on my husband's face, blurred and distorted through the cracked windshield. "Help is on the way, honey. Just stay with me, okay?" The next few hours passed in a haze of sirens, bright lights, and urgent voices. When I finally regained full consciousness, I found myself in a sterile hospital room, my body a patchwork of bandages and tubes. "Oh, thank God!" Leah, my daughter, exclaimed as she noticed my eyes flutter open. "Mom's awake!" Caleb, my son, rushed to my bedside, his face etched with worry. "How are you feeling, Mom?" I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Mark appeared with a cup of water, gently helping me take a sip. "Easy does it, Rachel," he said softly. "The doctor said you've got a long road ahead of you." As the fog in my mind began to clear, the reality of my situation sank in. Multiple fractures, internal injuries, and a severe concussion. The list seemed endless. The thought of the recovery process ahead made my head spin. "How long have I been here?" I managed to croak out. 3 days, Mark replied, his hand resting on mine. "The kids and I have been taking turns staying with you." I felt a rush of gratitude for my family's support, but it was quickly overshadowed by a gnawing worry. What about work? The bills? Mark's expression tightened for a moment before he forced a smile. "Don't you worry about any of that right now. You just focus on getting better." The following weeks blurred together in a haze of pain medication, physical therapy, and frustration. As I slowly regained my strength, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mark seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone and disappearing for long stretches of time. One afternoon, as I was sorting through a pile of mail that had accumulated during my hospital stay, I came across a bill that made my blood run cold. It was from a collection agency, demanding payment for a sum that made my eyes water. "Mark?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Can you come here for a second?" He appeared in the doorway, his face pale. "What is it, honey?" I held up the bill, my hand shaking. "What is this? Where did this come from?" Mark's eyes darted around the room, refusing to meet mine. It's nothing. Just a mistake. I'll take care of it." But as I looked closer at the pile of envelopes, I saw more bills, more demands for payment. The pieces started to fall into place, and a cold dread settled in my stomach. "Mark," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what have you done?" He slumped against the doorframe, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't want you to find out like this." As the truth spilled out, the gambling, the mounting debts, the lies, I felt my world crumbling around me once again. The accident had left me physically broken, but this revelation threatened to shatter what was left of my spirit. "How could you?" I choked out, tears streaming down my face. "How could you do this to us?" Mark reached out to me, his eyes pleading, but I recoiled from his touch. In that moment, I realized that the road to recovery ahead of me was far longer and more treacherous than I had ever imagined. I stared at Mark, my mind reeling from his confession. The weight of our financial ruin pressed down on me, threatening to crush what little strength I'd regained since the accident. "How much?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark's eyes darted away. "Rachel, How much?" Each word felt like a dagger in my throat. He sighed, shoulders slumping. "Just over $200,000. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. $200,000? How is that even possible? It got out of hand. I thought I could win it back, make things right before you found out. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. Make things right? You've destroyed us, Mark. What about the kids' college funds? Our retirement? His face hardened. Don't you think I know that? I've been killing myself trying to fix this while you've been lying around for months. The words hit me like a physical blow. Lying around? I nearly died. And I've been here, haven't I? Taking care of you, the house, everything. But you haven't exactly been pulling your weight lately, have you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you seriously blaming me for this? Mark's eyes flashed. All I'm saying is that if you'd been more attentive, maybe I wouldn't have needed to find other outlets. The slap echoed through the room before I even realized I'd moved. Mark stumbled back, hand to his cheek, shock written across his face. Get out, I hissed. Get out of my sight before I do something we'll both regret. He hesitated for a moment, then stormed out of the room. I heard the front door slam, followed by the screech of tires as he peeled out of the driveway. I sank into a chair, my body trembling. How had we come to this? The man I'd loved, the father of my children, reduced to a lying, gambling addict who blamed me for his own failures. The sound of footsteps made me look up. Leah and Caleb stood in the doorway, their faces a mix of concern and confusion. Mom? Leah's voice was soft. We heard shouting. Is everything okay? I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. No, sweetheart, everything is not okay. Over the next hour, I explained the situation to my children. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to anger to heartbreak. What are we going to do? Caleb asked, his voice small and scared. Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Mark strode in, his face flushed and eyes wild. Pack your bags, he announced. We're selling the house. What? I stood, ignoring the pain that shot through my still healing body. You can't be serious. He waved a handful of papers at me. It's the only way. I've already talked to a realtor. If we sell now, we might be able to cover most of the debt. Dad, no, Leah protested. This is our home. Mark's gaze softened as he looked at our children. I know, sweetie, but we don't have a choice. The hell we don't, I snapped. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about our lives anymore, Mark. Not after what you've done. His eyes narrowed. Oh, and what do you suggest? You can barely walk. How exactly do you plan to contribute to fixing this mess? The words stung, but I refused to let him see how much. I'll figure something out, but I won't let you destroy our children's lives to cover up your mistakes. Mark's face contorted with anger. He strode towards me, looming over me. You don't have a choice, Rachel. Unless you've got a secret stash of cash hidden away somewhere. This is happening. As I stared up at him, something inside me snapped. The fear and uncertainty of the past months crystallized into a cold, hard resolve. Maybe I do, I said, my voice steady. Maybe I've been planning for this day longer than you think. The look of shock on Mark's face was almost worth everything we'd been through. Almost. What are you talking about? He demanded. I smiled, a small, dangerous thing. Why don't you sit down, dear? We have a lot to discuss. The tension in the room was palpable as Mark stared at me, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What do you mean? You've been planning for this. What have you been hiding, Rachel? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I'm not the one who's been hiding things, Mark, but we'll get to that. First, let's talk about your brilliant plan to sell our home. Mark's jaw clenched. It's the only way. No, I cut him off. It's not, and I won't let you bully me or our children into this decision. He slammed his hand on the table, making me flinch. Damn it, Rachel, we don't have a choice. Unless you can magically make $200,000 appear, we're selling the house. I saw Leah and Caleb exchange worried glances. My heart ached for them, caught in the middle of this mess. There's always a choice, Mark, I said, my voice steady. And I choose not to let your mistakes destroy our family. His eyes narrowed. Oh, and how exactly do you plan to fix this? I took a deep breath. I'll go back to work. The room fell silent. Mark's laugh, when it came, was bitter and mocking. You? Work? In your condition? Don't be ridiculous, Rachel. You can barely make it up the stairs without help. His words stung, but I refused to let him see how much. I may not be able to return to teaching right away, but there are other options, online tutoring, for example. Mark scoffed. That's your big solution? A few hours of tutoring won't even make a dent in what we owe. It's a start, I insisted, and it's better than throwing away our children's future. He shook his head, his expression hardening. No, it's not enough. We're selling the house, and that's final. I saw the moment he made his decision, saw the cruel glint in his eye before he spoke. Unless what? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. Mark pulled out a folded document from his pocket, tossing it onto the table between us. Unless you agree to my terms. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. My heart dropped as I read the title, Petition for Divorce. You can't be serious, I whispered. Oh, I'm dead serious, Mark said, his voice cold. Here's the deal. You go back to work full-time, contribute every penny to paying off our debt, and I won't file these papers. We stay together, keep the house, and eventually dig ourselves out of this hole. I stared at him, barely recognizing the man I'd married. And if I refuse? His smile was devoid of warmth. Then I file for divorce, we sell the house, and you can figure out how to support yourself on whatever the judge decides to give you. Your choice. The room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady myself. How had we come to this? How had the man I loved become this cruel, manipulative stranger? Dad, you can't do this! Leah's voice broke through my shock. She reached for the divorce papers, but Mark snatched them away. Stay out of this, Leah, he snapped. This is between your mother and me. The hell it is! Caleb stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. This affects all of us, Dad. You can't just... Enough, Mark roared. This is not up for discussion. Rachel, what's it going to be? Work or divorce? I looked at my children, saw the fear and anger in their eyes. Then I looked at Mark, at the stranger wearing my husband's face. In that moment, something inside me hardened, a resolve I didn't know I possessed. You want an answer? I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Fine, here's my answer. I reached for the divorce papers, ignoring Mark's triumphant smirk, but instead of signing them, I tore them in half, then quarters, letting the pieces flutter to the floor. I choose neither, I said, meeting Mark's shocked gaze. I won't be bullied or manipulated anymore. You want a divorce? File the papers yourself. But know this, I'm done playing by your rules. The look of utter disbelief on Mark's face almost made me laugh. Almost. But as I watched his shock turn to fury, I realized that this was far from over. The battle lines had been drawn, and I had just fired the first shot in what promised to be a long and bitter war. The silence that followed my defiance was deafening. Mark's face contorted with rage, his fists clenching at his sides. I braced myself for the explosion I knew was coming. You ungrateful bitch, he snarled, taking a menacing step towards me. After everything I've done for you. Dad, stop! Caleb intervened, placing himself between us. This isn't helping anyone. Mark's gaze snapped to our son, his eyes blazing. Stay out of this, Caleb. This is between your mother and me. I saw Leah pull out her phone, her fingers flying over the screen. I'm calling the police, she announced, her voice shaking but determined. No, I said quickly, surprising even myself. No police, not yet. I turned to Mark, steeling myself. You want to know how I plan to fix this mess? Fine, I'll show you. With trembling hands, I reached for my laptop on the nearby table. Every movement sent jolts of pain through my still healing body, but I ignored it. I had a point to prove. Mom, what are you doing? Leah asked, confusion evident in her voice. I managed a small smile. Something I should have done a long time ago. As I logged into my account, I could feel Mark's impatient glare boring into me. If this is some kind of joke, Rachel. It's not a joke. I cut him off, turning the screen towards him. Take a look. Mark's eyes widened as he scanned the page, disbelief etched across his features. What? What is this? My work account, I said, my voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. I've been tutoring online since I got out of the hospital. The room fell silent as the implications of my revelation sank in. Leah was the first to speak. Mom, why didn't you tell us? I sighed, the weight of my secrets suddenly feeling unbearably heavy. Because I needed to protect myself, to have a safety net in case. I trailed off, glancing at Mark. His face had turned an alarming shade of red. You've been working behind my back? For how long? Long enough, I replied, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. Long enough to know that I can support myself if I need to. Mark's laugh was bitter and mocking. Support yourself? With what? A few $100s from online tutoring? Don't be ridiculous, Rachel. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. It's not just a few $100s, Mark. I scrolled down the page, revealing my account balance. The gasp that echoed through the room was almost comical. Mark's eyes bulged as he stared at the 5-figure sum displayed on the screen. How is this possible? He stammered. I've been working every spare moment, I explained, my voice growing stronger with each word. While you were out gambling away our future, I was building us a safety net. Or at least, I thought it was for us. Mark's shock quickly gave way to anger. You've been hiding this money while I've been drowning in debt? While I've been killing myself trying to keep us afloat? Killing yourself? I repeated incredulously. You mean gambling away everything we've worked for? He lunged forward, grabbing my arm roughly. That money is mine too. You had no right. Let go of her, Caleb shouted, pulling Mark away from me. As I rubbed my arm, wincing at the pain, I realized that this was the moment, the crossroads I'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. You're right about one thing, Mark, I said, my voice eerily calm. This money isn't just mine. It's for our children's future, the future you were willing to gamble away. I turned to Leah and Caleb, their faces a mix of shock, admiration, and fear. Kids, I'm so sorry you had to see all this, but I need you to know that no matter what happens next, I will always be here for you. Then I faced Mark one last time, drawing on a strength I didn't know I possessed. As for you, I think it's time we had a real conversation about our future. Or rather, the lack of one. The look of dawning comprehension on Mark's face told me he finally understood. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about freedom, self-respect, and the courage to start over. As I closed my laptop, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it on my own terms. The days following my revelation were a whirlwind of tension and heated discussions. Mark oscillated between rage and desperate attempts at reconciliation, while Leah and Caleb tried their best to mediate. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home, constantly braced for the next confrontation. It was on a particularly tense evening that everything came to a head. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when Mark stormed in, waving a handful of papers. What the hell is this? He demanded, slamming the documents on the counter. I glanced at them, my heart sinking as I recognized the letterhead of our bank. Where did you get those? Does it matter? Mark's eyes blazed with fury. You've been moving money around behind my back, transferring funds to a separate account. Care to explain? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I think you know exactly what it means, Mark. His laugh was bitter. Oh, I do. It means you've been planning this for a while, haven't you? Squirreling away money, getting ready to leave me high and dry. Can you blame me? I shot back, my own anger rising. After everything you've put us through? Mark's face contorted with rage. He grabbed my arm, yanking me towards him. Everything I've put us through? I've kept this family afloat for years while you. Let go of her. Caleb's voice rang out as he rushed into the kitchen, Leah close behind. Mark released me, stepping back as our children positioned themselves between us. The look of shock on their faces broke my heart. What's going on? Leah asked, her voice trembling. We heard shouting. I rubbed my arm, wincing at the pain. Your father found out about some financial arrangements I've been making. You mean your escape plan? Mark spat. Caleb's eyes widened. Escape plan? Mom, what's he talking about? I looked at my children, seeing the confusion and fear in their eyes. It was time for the truth, all of it. I've been preparing for the possibility of leaving your father, I said softly. I've set up a separate account, been saving money. You're leaving? Leah's voice cracked. But why? Mark scoffed. Because she's selfish. She's willing to tear this family apart over a few mistakes. A few mistakes? I interrupted, my voice rising. You gambled away our savings, our children's college funds. You lied. You manipulated. Enough! Caleb shouted, his face pale. Just enough, both of you. The kitchen fell silent, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Is this really what you want, Rachel? Mark asked, his voice suddenly quiet. To throw away 15 years of marriage? I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a wave of sadness wash over me. This man who I had once loved so deeply now felt like a stranger. I don't want to throw anything away, Mark. I said softly. But I can't keep living like this. The lies, the gambling, the constant fear. It's killing me. So what, you're just going to leave? Take the kids and run? I shook my head. No, I'm not taking anyone anywhere. Leah and Caleb are adults. They can make their own decisions. Our children exchanged glances, the weight of the situation clearly settling on their shoulders. But you're right about one thing, I continued, my resolve strengthening with each word. I am leaving. And I think it's time we made it official. The room fell silent as the implications of my words sank in. Mark's face paled, then flushed with anger. You can't be serious? He sputtered. A divorce after everything we've been through? I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. Yes, Mark. A divorce. It's time we both faced the truth. This marriage has been over for a long time. As I watched the shock and disbelief play across Mark's face, I realized that this was it, the point of no return. But instead of fear, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Mom, Leah's voice was barely above a whisper. Are you sure about this? I turned to my children, seeing the mix of emotions in their eyes. I am, I said softly. I know this is hard, and I'm so sorry you're caught in the middle. But I need to do this, for all of us. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of my crumbling marriage, I knew that the road ahead would be difficult. But for the first time in years, I felt hope. Hope for a future free from lies and manipulation. Hope for a chance to rediscover who I was without Mark's shadow looming over me. The decision was made. Now I just had to find the strength to see it through. The day I filed for divorce felt surreal. As I stood outside the courthouse, divorce papers clutched in my trembling hands, a mix of emotions washed over me. Relief, fear, and a strange sense of exhilaration. Mom? Leah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Are you okay? I managed a small smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just processing. Caleb squeezed my shoulder. We're proud of you, Mom. It couldn't have been easy. Their support meant everything, but I couldn't shake the nagging worry about what Mark would do when he found out. I didn't have to wait long to find out. My phone buzzed incessantly as we drove home. Mark's name flashed on the screen, along with a barrage of text messages. I ignored them all. As we pulled into the driveway, my heart sank. Mark's car was parked haphazardly on the lawn, and I could see him pacing on the porch. Maybe we should go somewhere else, Leah suggested, her voice tight with concern. I shook my head. No, this is our home. We're not running away. Mark's face was a mask of fury as we approached. How dare you? He snarled, waving a copy of the divorce papers. After everything I've done for this family, you go behind my back and file for divorce? Dad, calm down. Caleb stepped between us, his voice steady but tense. Mark shoved him aside. Stay out of this, Caleb. This is between your mother and me. No, it's not, I said, finding strength in my children's presence. This affects all of us, Mark, and it's long overdue. His laugh was bitter and mocking. Oh, is that so? And how exactly do you plan to support yourself, Rachel? With your little online tutoring gig? I stood my ground, meeting his gaze. That's none of your concern anymore. Something dangerous flashed in Mark's eyes. Oh, but it is. You see, I've been doing some digging of my own, and I know all about your secret savings account. My blood ran cold. How had he found out? That money is as much mine as it is yours, Mark continued, his voice low and menacing. And I intend to get my share. You can't, I protested. That money is for the kids' future. For what? Mark interrupted. Your escape plan? Well, guess what, Rachel? I'm not letting you off that easy. If you want this divorce, fine. But I'll make damn sure you don't walk away with a penny more than you deserve. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. I felt my resolve wavering, the fear of a prolonged legal battle threatening to overwhelm me. You can't intimidate me anymore, Mark, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've made my decision. His face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, Rachel. I'll make sure of it. As Mark stormed off, peeling out of the driveway with a screech of tires, I felt my knees go weak. Leah and Caleb rushed to support me, guiding me into the house. Mom, what did Dad mean about your savings account? Leah asked, her voice trembling. I sank onto the couch, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I've been saving money, more than I let on. I wanted to make sure we'd be okay if you left Dad, Caleb finished, his expression unreadable. I nodded, tears welling up. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to drag you into this mess. Leah took my hand. "We're already in it, Mom, and we're with you no matter what." Their support should have been comforting, but all I could think about was Mark's threat. If he contested the divorce, if he went after my savings, everything I'd worked for could be lost. As I sat there, surrounded by my children but feeling more alone than ever, I realized that the real battle was just beginning. Mark wouldn't go down without a fight, and I had to be prepared for whatever he might throw at me. The freedom I'd tasted when I filed those divorce papers now felt like a distant dream, but I couldn't give up now. Not when I'd come so far. With a deep breath, I straightened my shoulders. "We need a plan," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Mark's not going to make this easy, but I'm not backing down. Not this time." As Leah and Caleb nodded in agreement, I felt a flicker of hope. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The road ahead would be tough, but for the first time in years, I was ready to fight for my future, and for the future of my children. The weeks following my divorce filing were a blur of legal meetings and heated arguments. Mark had made good on his threat, contesting every aspect of our separation, but I was done being a victim. I had a plan, one that would secure my future and that of our children. As I sat in my lawyer's office, listening to her outline Mark's latest demands, I felt a surge of determination. "He wants half of everything, Rachel," she said, her tone grave, "including your savings." I took a deep breath. "Let him try. I have one last card to play." My lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what might that be?" I smiled, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. "I'm buying the house." Her eyes widened. "The family home? But how?" "I've been saving more than Mark knows," I explained. "Enough to make a substantial down payment. I've already spoken to the bank." As I left the office, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the realtor. "Offer accepted. Congratulations." My heart raced. It was really happening. I drove home, my mind whirling with possibilities. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Mark's car parked out front. My stomach clenched, but I refused to let fear take over. Inside, I found Mark in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. Leah and Caleb were there too, their faces tense. "Well, well." Mark sneered as I entered. "If it isn't the woman of the hour, come to beg for mercy." I stood tall, meeting his gaze. "Actually, I came to make you an offer." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "An offer? This should be good." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm buying the house, Mark. It's a done deal." The room fell silent. Mark's face contorted in disbelief, then rage. "You what? How dare you?" "I dare because it's my right," I interrupted, my voice steady. "This home is for our children, not a bargaining chip in your games." Mark lunged forward, his face inches from mine. "You think you can just take everything from me? I'll fight you every step of the way. You'll what?" I challenged. "Gamble away what little you have left? Face it, Mark, it's over." His hand raised, and for a moment I thought he might strike me. But Caleb was there in an instant, grabbing his father's arm. "Don't even think about it, Dad," he growled. Mark wrenched his arm free, his eyes wild. "You're all against me, aren't you? My own family turning their backs on me." "We didn't turn our backs on you," Leah said softly. "You pushed us away." I saw the pain in my children's eyes and it broke my heart, but I had to stay strong. For all of us. "Here's the deal, Mark," I said, pulling out an envelope. "This is a settlement offer. It's not much, but it's fair. Take it and you can walk away without any more legal battles." He snatched the envelope, tearing it open. As he read, his face paled. This is nothing after everything I've done for this family." "Everything you've done?" I repeated incredulously. "You mean lying, gambling, manipulating? No, Mark, this is more than you deserve." For a moment I saw a flicker of the man I once loved, vulnerable, lost, but it was quickly replaced by cold fury. "You'll regret this, Rachel," he hissed. "I'll make sure of it." As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I felt my knees go weak. Leah and Caleb rushed to my side, supporting me. "Mom, are you okay?" Leah asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I'm fine. It's really over, isn't it?" Caleb squeezed my hand. "Yeah, Mom, it is, and we're so proud of you." As we stood there, in the home that was now truly ours, I felt a mix of emotions washing over me. Relief, fear, hope. I knew Mark's threat wasn't empty. He would fight, tooth and nail, to make this difficult for me. But looking at my children, seeing their strength and support, I knew I could face whatever came next. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. As night fell, I sat on the porch, looking out at the neighborhood I'd fought so hard to keep. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new challenges. But tonight, I allowed myself to savor this small victory. The war wasn't over, but I had won an important battle, and I was ready for whatever came next. The day of the final court hearing arrived, a culmination of months of legal battles and emotional turmoil. As I stood outside the courthouse, smoothing down my suit, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Whatever happened today, I was ready to face it. "Mom?" Leah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She and Caleb stood beside me, their faces a mix of concern and determination. "Are you ready?" I nodded, drawing strength from their presence. "As ready as I'll ever be." Inside, the courtroom was a buzz of activity. My lawyer offered a reassuring smile as I took my seat. And then there was Mark, looking haggard and defeated, but with a glint of defiance in his eyes that made my stomach churn. As the judge entered and proceedings began, I found myself drifting, remembering the journey that had brought me here. The accident, the lies, the moment I decided to take control of my life. It all seemed so distant now, yet the emotions were still raw. My lawyer's voice snapped me back to reality. "Your Honor, my client has provided extensive evidence of Mr. Thompson's gambling addiction and financial mismanagement. We believe the settlement offer is more than fair." Mark's lawyer countered, spinning tales of my supposed deceit and hidden assets. But I held my ground, my gaze steady as the judge considered both sides. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge spoke. "Having reviewed all the evidence, I find in favor of Mrs. Thompson. The settlement will proceed as outlined, with Mrs. Thompson retaining full ownership of the family home." A collective gasp filled the room. I sat stunned as the reality of the moment sank in. We had won. It was over. Mark's anguished cry broke through my daze. "This is ridiculous. She's taken everything from me." As he lunged towards me, security intervened, restraining him. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw the man I once loved, now a stranger consumed by bitterness and rage. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by my children and my lawyer, the full weight of what had transpired hit me. Tears streamed down my face, tears of relief, of grief for the life I'd lost, and of hope for the future I'd fought so hard to secure. "Mom, you did it," Caleb said, pulling me into a tight hug. "It's really over." Leah joined the embrace, her voice thick with emotion. "We're so proud of you, Mom. You've shown us what real strength looks like." As we drove home, to my home, I felt a sense of lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The house, once a symbol of my captivity, now represented freedom and new beginnings. That evening, as I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the fear, the moments of doubt, they had all led to this moment of peace. Leah joined me, handing me a steaming mug of tea. "How are you feeling, Mom?" I smiled, genuinely and without reservation. "Free," I replied, "and a little scared, but mostly I feel hopeful." She squeezed my hand. "You know, watching you stand up for yourself, fight for what's right, it's inspired me. I've decided to switch my major to law. I want to help people the way your lawyer helped you." My heart swelled with pride. "Oh, Leah, you'll be amazing." Caleb appeared in the doorway. "Room for one more?" As my children settled on either side of me, I felt a surge of love and gratitude. We had weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. "You know," Caleb said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking about my future too. Seeing how hard you worked, Mom, how you built something for yourself even when everything seemed hopeless, it's made me realize I want to start my own business. Be my own boss, like you." I hugged them both close, marveling at the incredible young adults they had become. "I'm so proud of both of you, and I want you to know, no matter what challenges you face, you can overcome them. We're proof of that." As night fell, wrapping us in its gentle embrace, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The road ahead would have its challenges, but I was ready to face them. I had my freedom, my home, and most importantly, the love and support of my children. The future, once a source of dread, now held endless possibilities, and I was ready to embrace every one of them. The shrill beep of the heart monitor jolted me from my exhausted stupor. I blinked, realizing I'd dozed off in the uncomfortable hospital chair again. Lily, my 4-year-old angel, was curled up asleep in my lap, her golden curls tickling my chin. Olivia, Peter's voice was barely a whisper. I looked up to see my husband standing in the doorway, his face ashen. "Mom's awake. The doctor wants to talk to us." I gently shifted Lily onto the chair and followed Peter down the sterile hallway. My legs felt like lead, weighed down by dread and too many sleepless nights. As we approached Estelle's room, I reached for Peter's hand. He flinched, pulling away. Dr. Patel greeted us with a grim expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid I have some difficult news. The cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated. At this stage, we're looking at palliative care only. I'm so sorry." Peter's shoulders sagged. I instinctively moved to comfort him, but he stepped away, running a hand through his disheveled hair. How long?" he choked out. "It's hard to say with certainty," Dr. Patel replied softly, "but I would estimate no more than 3 to 6 months." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I steadied myself against the wall, my mind racing. 3 to 6 months. How could we possibly prepare for this? Peter's voice cut through my thoughts. "We need to move in with them. Dad can't handle this alone." I froze. "Peter, wait. We can't just—" "Can't what, Olivia?" His tone was sharp, accusing. "Abandon my dying mother?" "That's not what I meant," I protested. "But Lily, our jobs, we need to think this through." Peter's eyes flashed with anger. "There's nothing to think about. They're my parents. We're moving in. End of discussion." Before I could respond, a weak voice called from inside the room. "Peter? Is that you, darling?" Peter brushed past me, leaving me alone in the hallway. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising panic in my chest. This was all happening too fast. I peered into the room, watching as Peter tenderly held his mother's frail hand. Estelle's eyes met mine, and for a moment I swore I saw a flicker of something. Resentment? Triumph? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a wan smile. "Olivia, dear," she called softly. "Come here, please." I approached the bed, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling, Estelle?" "Oh, you know," she sighed dramatically. "As well as can be expected, I suppose. Peter tells me you'll be coming to stay with us. That's so kind of you, dear. I know it must be such an inconvenience." "It's no inconvenience," I lied, my cheeks burning. "We want to help however we can." Estelle patted my hand, her bony fingers surprisingly strong. "You're such a good girl. I'm so lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Peter beamed at his mother, completely oblivious to the undercurrent of tension in the room. "I'll go check on Lily," I murmured, desperate for an escape. As I turned to leave, Estelle called out, "Oh, and Olivia? Be a dear and bring me some fresh water. This picture is simply dreadful." I bit back a retort and nodded, my fingers clenching into fists as I left the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, fighting back tears of frustration. How had my life come to this? Just yesterday, we were a happy family of 3, with our own home and our own lives. Now, in the span of a few hours, everything had changed. We were about to uproot our entire existence, all because of Estelle's illness and Peter's guilt. As I made my way back to Lily, a chill ran down my spine. Something told me this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. Little did I know just how right I was, or how much I would come to regret the decision to move in with Peter's parents. The moving van rumbled away, leaving us standing in the driveway of Peter's childhood home. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the anxiety bubbling in my chest. This was our new reality now. "Welcome home." Harold's booming voice startled me. Peter's father emerged from the house, his weathered face creased in a warm smile. "Let me help you with those boxes, Olivia." "Thanks, Harold," I said, grateful for his kindness. As we carried boxes inside, I couldn't help but notice how different he was from Estelle. Where she was all sharp edges and thinly veiled criticism, Harold exuded genuine warmth. "Where's Peter?" Harold asked, setting down a box. I sighed. "He had to run back to our place for some last-minute things. He'll be here later." Harold nodded, his eyes crinkling with concern. "How are you holding up, dear?" I paused, unsure how to answer. "I'm managing." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "I know this isn't easy, but we're glad to have you here, all of you." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thank you, Harold. That means a lot." Our moment was interrupted by Estelle's voice, thin and reedy, calling from upstairs. "Harold? Is that Olivia? Send her up here, would you?" Harold gave me an apologetic look. "Duty calls," I muttered, forcing a smile. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Estelle was propped up in bed, looking frail but somehow still intimidating. "There you are," she said, her tone impossible to read. "I hope you're settling in all right." "Yes, thank you," I replied, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. Estelle's eyes narrowed. "Well, don't just stand there. Come in. Sit down. We need to talk about how things are going to work around here." I perched on the edge of a chair, my stomach churning. "Of course. What did you have in mind?" "Well," Estelle began, her voice sickly sweet, "I know you're used to running your own household, but things are different here. I have certain standards." For the next hour, Estelle outlined a laundry list of expectations and rules. How to do the laundry, what cleaning products to use, what foods were and weren't allowed in the house. With each passing minute, I felt the walls closing in around me. "And of course," Estelle concluded, "I'll need you to take over my caregiving duties. Harold means well, but he's simply not up to the task." I blinked, stunned. "But I work full-time, and Lily—" "Oh, I'm sure you'll manage," Estelle waved her hand dismissively. "After all, isn't that what family does? We sacrifice for each other." Before I could respond, I heard the front door open and Lily's excited voice float up the stairs. "Daddy's home!" "We'll talk more later," Estelle said, effectively dismissing me. I stumbled down the stairs, my mind reeling. Peter was in the living room, Lily clinging to his leg. "Hey," he said, barely looking at me. "Everything okay?" I opened my mouth to tell him about Estelle's impossible demands, but stopped short when I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. "It's fine," I lied. "Just getting settled." Peter nodded absently, already heading upstairs to see his mother. I watched him go, a familiar ache settling in my chest. Later that night, as I tucked Lily into her new bed, she looked up at me with wide, worried eyes. "Mommy, are we going to live here forever?" I smoothed her hair, forcing a smile. "No, sweetie, not forever, just for a little while to help Grandma and Grandpa." "But I miss our house," she whispered, lower lip trembling. "I know, baby," I said, fighting back tears of my own. "I miss it too." As I closed Lily's door, I overheard Peter and Estelle talking in hushed tones down the hall. I crept closer, my heart pounding. "Can't keep this up forever, Mom," Peter was saying. "Olivia's going to find out eventually." "Nonsense," Estelle hissed. "She doesn't need to know anything. Just keep her busy, keep her distracted. I'll handle the rest." I stumbled back, my mind racing. What were they hiding from me? And how much worse was this situation going to get? The acrid smell of burnt toast filled the kitchen as I frantically waved a dish towel at the smoke detector. Lily's eyes were wide with worry, her little hands clasped over her ears. "I'm sorry, sweetie," I said, my voice strained. "Mommy's just a little distracted this morning. What is that ghastly smell?" Estelle's voice cut through the air like a knife. She appeared in the doorway, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Olivia, dear, I thought you said you could cook." I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. "It's just a little burnt toast, Estelle. I'll make fresh." "Never mind," she interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "I've lost my appetite. Peter, darling, would you mind running out for some proper breakfast?" Peter, who had been silently observing the scene, nodded. "Sure, Mom. What would you like?" As they discussed Estelle's elaborate breakfast order, I felt my frustration mounting. It had been 3 weeks since we moved in, and every day brought new criticisms, new impossible standards to meet. "Mommy," Lily tugged at my sleeve, "can I have cereal instead?" Before I could answer, Estelle chimed in. "Cereal? That's hardly a nutritious breakfast for a growing child. Really, Olivia, you should know better." I clenched my fists, counting to 10 in my head. "Estelle, I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of deciding what's best for my daughter." The room fell silent. Peter's eyes darted between us, a look of panic on his face. Estelle's lips thinned into a tight line. "Well," she said icily, "I can see where Lily gets her stubbornness from. Peter, be a dear and pick up some fresh fruit for your daughter. Clearly, she needs a better example of healthy eating habits." As Peter left, I turned to Lily. "Go get dressed, sweetie. I'll bring your breakfast up in a minute." Once Lily was out of earshot, I faced Estelle. "I know you're trying to help, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't undermine my parenting in front of Lily." Estelle's eyes flashed. "Undermine? I'm merely trying to ensure my granddaughter is properly cared for. Heaven knows she needs it, what with you working those long hours at the hospital." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It means, dear, that perhaps if you spent more time at home and less time playing nurse, you'd be a better mother and wife. The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to retort, but Harold's voice interrupted us. That's enough, Estelle, he said firmly, entering the kitchen. Olivia is doing her best, and she's a wonderful mother. Estelle's face softened instantly. Oh, Harold, I was just trying to help. You know how I worry about the children. I watched in disbelief as Harold patted her hands sympathetically. How could he not see through her act? The rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. By evening, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. As I was preparing dinner, Peter cornered me in the kitchen. Can we talk? He asked, his voice low. I nodded warily, following him to the back porch. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. Mom's worried about you? He began. She thinks you're not adjusting well. I stared at him incredulously. Not adjusting well? Peter, your mother has done nothing but criticize and belittle me since we got here. How am I supposed to adjust to that? Peter ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. She's dying, Olivia. Can't you just try to get along with her? For me? For you? I repeated, my voice rising. What about me, Peter? What about Lily? When was the last time you stood up for us? He flinched, looking away. You're being dramatic. Mom's just set in her ways. If you'd just try harder. Try harder, I interrupted, tears of anger and frustration stinging my eyes. I'm doing everything, Peter. Everything. And it's never enough. Not for your mother, and apparently not for you either. I turned to go back inside, but Peter grabbed my arm. Olivia, wait. No, I said, pulling away. I'm done waiting. I'm done trying. If you can't see what's happening here, then maybe we have bigger problems than I thought. As I walked back into the house, I caught sight of Estelle watching from an upstairs window, a satisfied smirk on her face. In that moment, I realized this was far from over. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was on my own. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the exhausted woman looking back at me. Dark circles shadowed my eyes, and my once vibrant smile had faded to a tight, worried line. 2 months in this house had taken their toll. A soft knock on the door startled me. Olivia? Harold's voice called. There's a call for you from the hospital. I opened the door, forcing a smile. Thanks, Harold. I'll take it in the study. As I walked down the hall, I overheard Estelle's voice drifting from her bedroom. Peter, darling, I'm feeling so weak today. Would you mind canceling your plans with Olivia and staying home? My heart sank. Peter and I had planned a rare night out, our first in weeks. I paused, waiting for his response. Of course, Mom, Peter replied without hesitation. I'll let Olivia know. I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course he would. I continued to the study, picking up the phone with trembling hands. Hello, this is Olivia. Olivia, it's Dr. Patel. I'm sorry to bother you at home, but we have an emergency situation at the hospital. We're short-staffed, and there's been a major accident. We need all hands on deck. Can you come in? I closed my eyes, torn between relief at escaping the house and guilt over leaving Lily. Yes, of course. I'll be there as soon as I can. As I hung up, Peter appeared in the doorway. Who was that? The hospital, I replied, already moving to gather my things. There's an emergency. I have to go in. Peter's face darkened. But what about Mom and Lily? You can't just leave. I spun to face him, anger flaring. I can't just leave? Like you were about to do 5 minutes ago when your mother asked? That's different, he protested weakly. How, Peter? How is it different? I demanded, my voice rising. Because it's your mother asking, and not your wife. Because her needs always come first. Olivia, that's not fair. No, what's not fair is how you've completely abandoned our family for your mother's whims, I snapped. I'm going to work because people's lives depend on me. What's your excuse? Before he could respond, Estelle's voice called out, Peter, is everything all right? Peter's shoulders sagged. Coming, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll talk about this later. I watched him go, a mixture of anger and despair churning in my stomach. As I prepared to leave, Lily appeared, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Mommy, are you going to work? She asked, her lower lip trembling. I knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. Yes, sweetheart, but I'll be back before you know it. Can you be a big girl and help Grandpa Harold while I'm gone? She nodded bravely, and I felt my heart breaking. This wasn't the life I wanted for her. At the hospital, I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Hours flew by in a blur of emergency procedures and critical care. It wasn't until my shift ended that I checked my phone, finding a barrage of missed calls and texts from Peter. "Where are you? Mom's not feeling well. We need you here. Why aren't you answering?" The last message made my blood run cold. "If you're not home in an hour, don't bother coming back at all." I stared at the screen, a strange calm settling over me. In that moment, I realized I'd reached my breaking point. This wasn't just about Estelle's manipulation or Peter's weakness. This was about my self-respect, my daughter's well-being, and the life I'd worked so hard to build. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. Could I leave? Where would we go? What about Lily? But with each passing mile, one thought became clearer. I couldn't continue like this. Something had to change. I pulled into the driveway, my decision made. It was time to stand up for myself and my daughter, no matter the cost. As I walked towards the house, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. Little did I know, the worst was yet to be revealed. I stepped into the silent house, my heart pounding. The confrontation I'd been steeling myself for seemed to evaporate in the eerie quiet. Where was everyone? As I climbed the stairs, I heard muffled voices coming from Estelle's room. I paused, my hand on the banister, torn between confronting them and retreating to my room. Then I heard my name. "Olivia doesn't suspect a thing, does she?" Estelle's voice, surprisingly strong, drifted through the crack in the door. "No, Mom," Peter replied, his tone weary. "But I can't keep lying to her. It's eating me alive." I inched closer, my breath catching in my throat. Estelle scoffed. "Lying? You're protecting her, Peter. She'd never understand the truth." "The truth," I whispered to myself, a cold dread settling in my stomach. "Mom, please," Peter pleaded. "It's been 5 years. We got married. We have Lily. Can't we just let it go?" "Let it go?" Estelle's voice turned sharp. "After what that woman did to me? To us?" "No, Peter. Olivia needs to pay for what happened." I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a gasp. What was she talking about? "It wasn't her fault," Peter argued weakly. "She didn't know about the affair. She didn't force us to get married." The world tilted on its axis. Affair? Forced marriage? My mind reeled, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "Oh, please," Estelle sneered. "That little tramp knew exactly what she was doing. Getting pregnant right before your wedding to that nice girl from church. She trapped you, Peter, and now she's going to suffer for it." I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out beneath me. Pregnant? But we'd only started trying for a baby after we got married. Unless... The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The rushed wedding. Peter's distance in those early months. The way Estelle had always looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. "Mom, enough." Peter's voice grew stronger. "I won't let you hurt Olivia anymore. This ends now." "Oh, it ends all right," Estelle replied, her voice dripping with malice. "Either you tell her the truth and watch her world crumble, or I will. And trust me, my version won't be kind." I'd heard enough. I turned and fled down the stairs, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. I burst out of the house, gulping in the cool night air. "Olivia?" Harold's voice startled me. He was sitting on the porch swing, a concerned look on his face. "What's wrong?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could I even begin to explain? Harold stood, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I heard them too," he said softly. "I'm so sorry, my dear. I had no idea." The kindness in his eyes broke something inside me. Tears spilled down my cheeks as the full weight of the betrayal crashed over me. "How could he?" I choked out. "All these years, everything was a lie?" Harold pulled me into a fatherly embrace. "Not everything," he murmured. "Your love for Lily, that's real. And Peter, he does love you, Olivia. He's just weak." I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "Love? Is that what you call this?" I gestured towards the house. "He's been lying to me our entire marriage, Harold. And Estelle, she's been plotting against me from the start." "What are you going to do?" Harold asked, his eyes filled with worry. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. In that moment, I knew there was only one path forward. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Tonight, I'm taking Lily, and we're getting out of here." Harold nodded, a mix of sadness and understanding on his face. "I'll help you pack." As we walked back into the house, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Peter appeared, his face pale and drawn. "Olivia," he started, his voice pleading. "We need to talk." I met his gaze, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No, Peter, I replied, my voice cold. We're done talking. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, all of it. I'm leaving, and I'm taking our daughter with me. The look of shock and desperation on Peter's face would have once broken my heart. Now it only strengthened my resolve. As I brushed past him to pack our things, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were finally breaking free. My hands shook as I zipped up the last suitcase. Lily's confused eyes followed my every move, her little brow furrowed with worry. "Mommy, where are we going?" she asked for the third time. I knelt down, cupping her face in my hands. "We're going on a little trip, sweetie, just you and me." A soft knock at the door made me jump. Harold stood there, his eyes filled with sadness. "The car's ready," he whispered. "I'll distract Peter while you slip out the back." I nodded, grateful for his help. As I gathered our bags, a commotion erupted downstairs. Peter's voice, angry and desperate, echoed through the house. "You can't leave. We need to talk about this." My heart raced. We were out of time. "Lily, honey, we need to go now," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Remember our game of super quiet spies? We need to play that right now, okay?" She nodded solemnly, clutching her stuffed rabbit to her chest. We crept down the back stairs, the sounds of Peter and Harold arguing covering our escape. Just as we reached the back door, Estelle's voice rang out. "Peter, she's taking Lily." Everything happened in a blur. Peter appeared at the top of the stairs, his face a mask of panic. "Olivia, stop!" I scooped Lily into my arms and ran. The cool night air hit my face as I sprinted across the backyard, my daughter clinging to me tightly. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered. "It's okay, baby. We're okay," I panted, reaching the car. As I fumbled with the keys, Peter burst out of the house. "Olivia, please, you can't do this." I spun to face him, anger and hurt boiling over. "I can't do this. You lied to me for years, Peter. Our entire marriage is based on a lie." "It's not like that," he pleaded, inching closer. "I love you. I love our family." "Love?" I spat the word like poison. "Was it love when you cheated on me? When you let your mother torment me for months?" Peter's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, I'll explain everything. Just, please don't take Lily." For a moment I hesitated. Then I saw Estelle in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious triumph. My resolve hardened. "No more explanations, Peter. No more lies." I opened the car door, securing Lily in her seat. Peter lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't leave. I won't let you." A surge of fear and anger coursed through me. I wrenched my arm free, shoving him back with a strength I didn't know I possessed. "Don't you dare touch me," I hissed. "You lost the right to tell me what to do the moment you betrayed our vows." I slammed the car door and locked it, my hands shaking as I started the engine. Peter pounded on the window, his face a mask of desperation. "Olivia, please. Think about Lily." "I am thinking about Lily," I shouted through the glass. "I'm saving her from growing up in a house full of lies and manipulation." As I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Harold in the rearview mirror. He stood on the porch, a lone figure of support in the chaos. I blinked back tears, focusing on the road ahead. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice came from the back seat. "Are we ever going back?" I swallowed hard, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I don't know, baby, but we're going to be okay. I promise." As we drove into the night, leaving behind the only life we'd known, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I would fight with everything I had to give Lily the life she deserved, free from the toxic web of lies and deceit we'd left behind. The road stretched out before us, dark and uncertain. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were free. Now, I just had to figure out how to rebuild our lives from the ashes of everything I thought I knew. The small apartment felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. Lily slept peacefully in the makeshift bed I'd created from couch cushions, her little face finally relaxed after hours of tears and confusion. I sat at the rickety kitchen table, staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages from Peter, each more desperate than the last. But it was the single text from Harold that made my heart clench. "We need to talk. Can we meet?" My fingers hovered over the keypad. Could I trust him? After everything that had happened, a soft knock at the door made me jump. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Harold stood there, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door, my voice barely a whisper. How did you find us? He held up his hands, a gesture of peace. Peter doesn't know. I followed you that night. I wanted to make sure you were safe. I let him in, torn between gratitude and suspicion. Why are you here, Harold? He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumped. I owe you an apology, Olivia, and an explanation. For the next hour, Harold poured out everything. How he'd suspected Peter's affair years ago, but chose to believe his son's lies. How Estelle had manipulated them all, using her illness as a weapon. And how he'd watched, helpless and ashamed, as Olivia suffered under their roof. I should have stood up for you, he said, his voice breaking. I was a coward, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I felt tears stinging my eyes. Why now, Harold? Why tell me all this? He reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn envelope. Because you deserve the truth, and because I can't stand by and watch my son to his family any longer. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, and a handwritten confession from Peter. The truth of his affair, the child he'd fathered, and the years of deception laid bare in black and white. He wanted to come clean, Harold explained. But Estelle, she threatened to disinherit him, to ruin your lives if he ever told you. I felt the room spin. So he chose money over honesty? Over our marriage? Harold nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. He's not the man I raised him to be, and I'm partly to blame for that. Just then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know where you are. Either you come home now, or I'll make sure you never see Lily again. Estelle. Ice flooded my veins. I showed Harold the message, watching his face pale. She can't do that, I whispered, panic rising in my chest. Can she? Harold's expression hardened. No, she can't, but she'll try. Olivia, listen to me. You need to fight, not just for yourself, but for Lily. I looked over at my sleeping daughter, so innocent and unaware of the storm raging around her. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The fear and uncertainty crystallized into a fierce protective rage. What do? I asked, my voice steady for the first time in days. Harold squeezed my hand. We gather evidence, we expose Estelle's manipulation and Peter's lies, and we make sure Lily stays with you where she belongs. As we began to plan, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. The road ahead would be hard, filled with legal battles and painful confrontations, but I knew now that I wasn't alone. Mommy? Lily's sleepy voice called from the other room. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the fight to come. I'm okay, baby, I called back, and I promise you we're going to be just fine. As I went to comfort my daughter, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me was stronger, fiercer than I'd ever been. Estelle and Peter had no idea what they were up against. This time, I wouldn't back down. This time, I would win. The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice was steady as I swore to tell the truth. Across the room, Peter sat with his lawyer, his face a mask of regret and desperation. Estelle was conspicuously absent, her illness finally catching up with her manipulations. As I recounted the months of emotional abuse, Peter's affair, and the web of lies that had entangled our family, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The truth, painful as it was finally coming to light. And why did you leave that night, Mrs. Thompson? My lawyer asked. I took a deep breath, my eyes finding Lily in the gallery, sitting between my parents and Harold. Because I realized that staying would destroy not just me, but my daughter. I couldn't let her grow up in a home built on lies and manipulation. Peter's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, as a wife who abandoned her family. But with each question, I stood my ground, armed with the evidence Harold had helped me gather. When it was over, I stepped down from the stand, feeling drained but oddly liberated. As we waited for the judge's decision on custody and divorce terms, Harold approached me in the hallway. Olivia, he said, his eyes brimming with tears, I'm so proud of you. You've shown more strength and courage than I ever could. I hugged him tightly, grateful for his unwavering support. Thank you, Harold, for everything. The judge's decision came swiftly. Full custody of Lily was awarded to me, with Peter granted supervised visitation. The divorce was finalized, and I was awarded a fair settlement, including the house that had once been our prison. As we left the courthouse, Peter approached, looking broken and defeated. Olivia, I'm sorry. For everything. I looked at him, the man I had once loved, now a stranger. I hope you find peace, Peter, and I hope you can be a better father to Lily than you were a husband to me. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Lily thrived in our new home, her laughter filling the rooms that had once echoed with tension and secrets. I threw myself into my nursing career, finding strength in helping others heal. One sunny afternoon, as Lily and I planted flowers in our small garden, Harold stopped by. He looked older, but there was a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I thought you should know," he said, sitting on the porch steps. "Estelle passed away last night." A complex mix of emotions washed over me, relief, sadness, and a final release from the past. "How's Peter taking it?" I asked, surprised by my own concern. Harold sighed. "He's struggling, but I think he's finally starting to see the truth about everything. He's in therapy, trying to become a better man, a better father." I nodded, watching Lily chase a butterfly across the lawn. I hope he succeeds for Lily's sake. As Harold left, I sat in the fading sunlight, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my life, it had all led to this moment of peace. "Mommy, look," Lily called, holding up a dandelion. "I made a wish." I smiled, pulling her into my lap. "What did you wish for, sweetheart?" She grinned, her eyes sparkling. "I wished for us to be happy forever and ever." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her tight. "Oh, Lily," I whispered, "I think that wish might just come true." As the sun set on another day, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For my daughter, for the strength I'd found within myself, and for the future stretching out before us. A future filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The road hadn't been easy, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. But I knew now that I could face anything life threw my way. I had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and created a safe harbor for Lily and myself. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. And this time, I would be the author of my own happiness. I stood on a rickety stepladder, stretching to hang a "Congratulations, Graduate" banner across our living room. The house buzzed with nervous energy as I prepared for Claire's party. My daughter was about to embark on a new chapter of her life, and I was determined to make this celebration perfect. "Mom, we're home." Claire's voice rang out, followed by the slam of the front door. I climbed down, brushing my hands on my jeans. "In here, sweetie." Claire burst into the room, her face glowing with excitement. My son Mike trailed behind, his usual teenage nonchalance momentarily replaced by a proud grin. "Mom, you won't believe it." Claire waved an envelope in the air. "I got the scholarship." My heart swelled. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful." I pulled her into a tight hug, then reached out to ruffle Mike's hair. Both my babies, making me so proud. Mike ducked away, but I caught the smile he tried to hide. Yeah. Claire's the golden child. We get it." "Oh, stop," I laughed, giving him a playful swat. "Now, who wants to help me finish decorating?" Claire's eyes widened as she took in the half-finished decorations. "Mom, you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Nonsense," I said, waving away her concern. "It's not every day my daughter graduates high school and gets a full ride to her dream school." As we worked, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of melancholy. Frank should have been here, helping us celebrate. But he'd made his choice years ago when he walked out on our family. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. "I'll get it," Mike called, already halfway to the door. I heard the door open, followed by a familiar voice that made my blood run cold. "Hey, sport, long time no see." "Frank," I froze, my hand clutching a string of fairy lights. Claire shot me a worried glance. "Dad?" Mike's voice was a mix of confusion and hope. "What are you doing here? Can't a father come to celebrate his daughter's big day?" Frank's voice grew louder as he approached the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. When Frank appeared in the doorway, I plastered on a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Frank, this is unexpected." He grinned, that same charming smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it just made my stomach churn. "Come on, Susie. You didn't think I'd miss this, did you?" Before I could respond, Claire stepped forward. "Dad, it's good to see you, but we weren't expecting you." Frank's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, I'm here now, and it looks like you could use some help." He gestured at the unfinished decorations. I opened my mouth to protest, but the delicate glass plate I was holding slipped from my fingers. It shattered on the hardwood floor, the crash echoing through the sudden silence. Frank tsked, shaking his head. Still as clumsy as ever, Susie? Maybe if I was around more. Something inside me snapped. Don't you dare, Frank. Don't you dare waltz in here after all this time and act like you have any right to be part of this family. His smile turned cold. I have every right. I'm their father. A father who left us high and dry, I shot back. A father who missed every important moment in their lives for the past 3 years. Frank's facade cracked, revealing a flash of anger. You're the one who kicked me out, remember? After you cheated on me. The words exploded from me. Years of pent-up hurt and rage finally finding release. Claire gasped. Mike's face paled. Frank's eyes darted between our children and me. Now, Susie, let's not air our dirty laundry in front of the kids. I laughed bitterly. Oh, now you care about the kids? Where was that concern when you were sneaking around behind my back? The room crackled with tension. Claire and Mike stood frozen, wide-eyed witnesses to the unraveling of their parents' carefully maintained pretense. Frank's jaw clenched. I think we need to talk. Privately. I glanced at my children's shocked faces, then back at Frank. This was supposed to be Claire's day, and here I was, letting him ruin it all over again. Fine, I said, my voice cold. Kids, why don't you go to your rooms for a bit? Your father and I need to have a little chat. As Claire and Mike reluctantly left the room, I turned to face Frank, my heart pounding. Whatever he had come here for, I was determined not to let him destroy our lives again. The morning after Frank's unexpected visit, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop screen in disbelief. My savings account balance glared back at me, mocking my attempts at financial stability. How could it have dropped so drastically? Mom, have you seen my blue sweater? Claire's voice floated down from upstairs. I closed the laptop with a snap. Check the laundry basket, honey. As I heard Claire rummaging around, my mind raced. Bills, groceries, car repairs. I'd been juggling it all since Frank left, but this was different. A sinking feeling in my gut told me Frank might be involved. The phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was my mother, Evelyn. Susan, dear, how are you holding up after yesterday's drama? I sighed, twirling the phone cord around my finger. I'm fine, Mom. It's just, something's not right with my finances. What do you mean? Her voice sharpened with concern. There's money missing from my savings. A lot of money. There was a pause on the other end. Susan, you don't think Frank... I don't know what to think anymore, I admitted, my voice cracking. Listen to me, Evelyn said firmly. You've relied on that man for far too long. It's time you take control of your own life. Her words stung, but I knew she was right. But how, Mom? I'm barely keeping my head above water as it is. One step at a time, dear. First, you need to find out what happened to that money. As we talked, a memory surfaced, Frank, years ago, insisting we set up joint accounts for convenience. I'd agreed, trusting him completely. What a fool I'd been. I'll look into it, I promised, just as Claire bounded into the kitchen. Found it, she announced triumphantly, holding up her sweater. Her smile faded as she caught my expression. Mom? What's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, sweetie. Just talking to Grandma about some boring adult stuff. Claire's eyes narrowed. She was too perceptive for her own good sometimes. Is it about Dad? I hesitated, then nodded. No use lying to her. Sort of, but don't worry about it, okay? You focus on school. She sat down across from me, her face serious. Mom, I'm not a kid anymore. You can talk to me. For a moment, I was tempted to unload everything. The missing money, my suspicions about Frank, the constant struggle to keep our family afloat. But looking at her young, earnest face, I couldn't bring myself to burden her. I know, sweetie, and I appreciate that. But right now, the best thing you can do is concentrate on your studies. This scholarship is a big deal. Claire opened her mouth to argue, but just then Mike stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and touzle-haired. Morning, he grunted, heading straight for the coffee maker. I raised an eyebrow. Since when do you drink coffee? He shrugged, pouring himself a cup. Since I decided I want to be a lawyer. Claire and I exchanged surprised glances. A lawyer? I asked. Where did this come from? Mike took a sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. After yesterday, I want to help people like us, Mom. People who get screwed over by jerks like Dad. My heart swelled with pride and sadness. My children were growing up so fast, shaped by the very struggles I'd tried to shield them from. That's wonderful, Mike, I managed, blinking back tears. As we sat there, the three of us sharing a moment of unexpected connection, my phone buzzed. A text from Frank. We need to talk about the kids' college funds. Meet me for lunch? My stomach churned. College funds? What college funds? We'd barely discussed Claire's education expenses, let alone Mike's. I looked up at my children, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Whatever game Frank was playing, I couldn't let him hurt them again. I had to find out what was going on, no matter the cost. Kids, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I need to run an errand. Will you be okay on your own for a bit? As they nodded, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. It was time to find out just how deep Frank's deception ran. I sat in my car outside Frank's office, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. After days of digging, I'd uncovered more than just missing money. There was a trail of deceit that led straight to a woman named Diane. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and marched into the building. Frank's secretary tried to stop me, but I brushed past her, barging into his office. Susan? Frank looked up, startled. What are you doing here? I slammed a folder on his desk, explaining where our children's college funds went, apparently. His face paled as he flipped through the documents, bank statements, credit card bills, and a damning photo of him with a blonde woman outside a hotel. How did you? He started, but I cut him off. Save it, Frank. I want answers, and I want them now. He leaned back, his shock morphing into that infuriatingly smug smile I'd grown to hate. Come on, Susie, you're overreacting. It's just business. Business? I spat. Is that what you call draining our accounts to wine and dine your mistress? Frank's eyes narrowed. Diane is not my mistress. She's a valuable business associate. Oh, I'm sure she's very valuable, I retorted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Valuable enough to risk your children's future? For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, but it quickly disappeared. The kids will be fine. Claire has her scholarship, and Mike. Mike wants to be a lawyer, I interrupted. Did you know that? Of course not, because you haven't been around. Frank stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Now listen here, Susan. What I do with my money is none of your business anymore. It is when it affects our children, I shouted, my composure finally cracking. Just then, his office door burst open. Claire and Mike stood there, their faces a mix of shock and anger. Dad? Claire's voice trembled. What's going on? Frank strained of color. Claire, Mike, this isn't... We heard everything, Mike said, his jaw clenched. How could you? I hadn't wanted them to find out like this, but there was no going back now. Kids, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to... No, Mom, Claire interrupted, stepping forward. Don't apologize. You're not the one who should be sorry. Frank tried to regain control of the situation. Now, let's all calm down and discuss this like adults. Adults? Mike scoffed. You mean like how you've been acting? Stealing from us and lying about it? The room crackled with tension as Frank looked from face to face, realizing he was cornered. I can explain everything, he said weakly. Save it, Claire snapped. We don't want to hear your excuses. I felt a surge of pride mixed with heartache. My children were standing up for themselves, for our family, but at what cost? Frank's demeanor suddenly changed, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. Now you listen here, all of you. I've worked hard to provide for this family, and I won't be judged by a bunch of ungrateful. That's enough, I shouted, stepping between Frank and the kids. We're leaving, and Frank, don't you dare come near us again. As we turned to go, Frank called out, This isn't over, Susan. You can't keep my children from me. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I once loved. Watch me. We left Frank's office, the three of us united in a way we hadn't been in years. As we stepped into the sunlight, I realized this was just the beginning. Frank wouldn't give up easily, and we had a long fight ahead of us. But looking at Claire and Mike, their faces set with determination, I knew we'd face whatever came next together. For the first time in years, I felt strong, truly strong. Frank had underestimated me, us, for the last time. As we drove home in tense silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had just changed irrevocably. The truth was out, but at what cost? And what would Frank do next? I sat across from Carol at our favorite cafe, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of lukewarm coffee. The events of the past few days swirled in my mind like a relentless storm. I just don't know what to do next, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Carol reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Susan, you've already done the hardest part. You stood up to Frank. I nodded, but the weight on my shoulders felt heavier than ever. But what now? He's still their father. I can't just cut him out completely, can I? You can, if he's a threat to your family's well-being, Carol said firmly. Have you considered getting a restraining order? The thought had crossed my mind, but it felt so final. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Plus, the kids. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Mom, Dad's here. He's making a scene. Please come home. My heart raced as I showed Carol the message. I have to go, I said, already gathering my things. I'm coming with you, Carol insisted, leaving no room for argument. We rushed to my house, and I could hear the shouting before we even reached the front door. Inside, Frank was pacing the living room, his face red with anger. Claire and Mike stood together, looking both defiant and scared. Frank, I shouted, pushing past him to stand between him and the kids. What do you think you're doing? He whirled on me, eyes blazing. What am I doing? What are you doing, poisoning my children against me? You did that all on your own. Mike spat, his fists clenched at his sides. Frank took a menacing step forward, but Carol moved quickly, placing herself beside me. I think you need to leave, Frank, she said coolly. He laughed bitterly. Oh, so you've got your little support group now, Susan? Think you're strong enough to keep me away from my family? We're not your family anymore, Claire said, her voice shaking but determined. You lost that right when you chose her over us. Frank's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little? That's enough, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. Get out, Frank, now, or I'm calling the police. For a moment, I thought he might actually strike me, but then, deflating slightly, he backed towards the door. This isn't over, Susan. You can't keep my kids from me forever. As the door slammed behind him, the house fell into an eerie silence. I turned to Claire and Mike, pulling them into a tight hug. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? They shook their heads, but I could feel them trembling against me. Mom, Mike said, his voice muffled against my shoulder, I think we need to do something more. He's not going to stop. I pulled back, looking at their faces, so young, yet bearing the weight of adult concerns. You're right, I said softly. We can't live like this anymore. Carol approached, her expression grave. Susan, I hate to say it, but I think it's time to consider legal action. A restraining order, maybe even full custody. The thought made my stomach churn, but I knew she was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my children. Just then my phone rang. It was my mother, Evelyn. Susan, she said without preamble, I've been thinking. You need to confront this Diane woman directly, get the full story from her. I blinked, taken aback. Mom, I don't think. Listen to me, Evelyn interrupted. Frank's not going to tell you the truth, but this woman, she might. And you need all the ammunition you can get if you're going to fight him. As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination settling over me. My mother's words echoed in my head, mingling with the memory of Frank's threats and my children's frightened faces. I looked at Claire and Mike, then at Carol. They were all watching me, waiting to see what I'd do next. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision that would change everything. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm going to find Diane. It's time to get the whole truth, once and for all. My heart pounded as I stood outside the small cafe where I'd arranged to meet Diane. Part of me still couldn't believe I was doing this, but I knew it was necessary. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. I spotted her immediately. Blonde, beautiful, and looking as nervous as I felt. As I approached, her eyes widened in recognition. Susan? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Diane. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of our shared connection to Frank hanging heavy between us. Finally, Diane spoke. I suppose you're here to tell me to stay away from your husband, she said, a hint of defiance in her tone. I couldn't help but laugh, though it came out bitter. Ex-husband, I corrected, and no, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I need the truth. Diane's bravado faltered. The truth about what? Everything, I said simply. Frank's lies, the missing money, all of it. I need to know what I'm up against. She looked away, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. I don't know if I can. Please, I interrupted, leaning forward. My children's future is at stake here. I need to understand what's really going on. Something in my voice must have reached her, because when Diane looked back at me, her eyes were filled with unexpected compassion. All right, she sighed, but you're not going to like what I have to say. Over the next hour, Diane painted a picture of Frank that was both familiar and shockingly new. She told me about his grand promises, his manipulative charm, and the web of lies he'd spun to keep us both in the dark. He told me you were separated, Diane admitted, shame coloring her cheeks, that you were just staying together for the kids. I had no idea. I felt a surge of anger, not at Diane, but at Frank. He's been playing us both, I realized aloud. Diane nodded, then hesitated before reaching into her purse. There's something else you should see, she said, pulling out a stack of papers. As I flipped through them, my blood ran cold. Bank statements, property deeds, offshore accounts, all in Frank's name, all hidden from me during our divorce. He's been siphoning money for years, Diane explained quietly. I only found out recently when I overheard him on the phone with his lawyer. I sat back, my mind reeling. This was so much worse than I'd imagined. Not only had Frank betrayed our family emotionally, but he'd also been systematically stealing our financial future. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice shaking. Diane's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of regret and determination. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I'm done being his puppet. I want out, just like you. In that moment, I saw Diane not as my rival, but as another victim of Frank's manipulation. An unexpected feeling of solidarity washed over me. What are you going to do? Diane asked softly. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I'm going to fight, I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. For my kids, for myself, and for every penny he's stolen from us. Diane nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. Good. And if you need a witness to his deception, well, you know where to find me. As I left the cafe, my mind was racing with possibilities. I had evidence now, real proof of Frank's deceit. But I also knew that using it would mean war, a messy, painful battle that would affect not just me, but my children as well. Standing on the sidewalk, clutching the damning papers to my chest, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could play it safe, try to negotiate quietly with Frank, or I could go nuclear, exposing everything and fighting for what was rightfully ours. The choice loomed before me, each path fraught with its own dangers and potential rewards. But as I thought of Claire's dreams of college, of Mike's determination to become a lawyer, I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. Mom, I said when she answered, my voice steady and determined, I need you to recommend a good lawyer. It's time to take Frank down. The day of Claire's graduation party arrived, and with it, a storm of emotions I wasn't prepared for. As I arranged platters of food and hung the last of the decorations, my mind raced with everything that had transpired over the past weeks. The confrontation with Frank, the revelations from Diane, the weight of the legal battle looming ahead, it all swirled together, threatening to overwhelm me. Mom, you okay? Claire's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, resplendent in her new dress, concern etched on her face. I forced a smile. Of course, sweetie. Just making sure everything's perfect for your big day. She didn't look convinced, but let it slide. As guests began to arrive, family, friends, Claire's classmates, I felt a growing sense of unease. Frank hadn't responded to my invitation, and part of me hoped he wouldn't show up at all. But of course, that was too much to ask for. I was in the kitchen refilling a punch bowl when I heard his voice boom through the house. Where's my graduate? My hands shook, nearly spilling the punch. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and walked into the living room. Frank stood in the center, all smiles and charm, as if he hadn't been absent for months, as if he hadn't stolen from us, lied to us, betrayed us in every way possible. Frank, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't think you'd come. He turned, his smile faltering for just a moment. Come on, Susie, you didn't think I'd miss my little girl's big day, did you? Before I could respond, Claire appeared, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. Dad, what are you doing here? Celebrating you, of course. Frank moved to hug her, but Claire stepped back. I didn't invite you. she said, her voice cold. Frank's facade cracked, anger flashing in his eyes. Now listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I interrupted, stepping between them. This is Claire's day. You don't get to waltz in here and ruin it. The room had gone quiet, all eyes on our family drama unfolding. I could see Mike in the corner, fists clenched, ready to jump in if needed. Frank laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, that's rich coming from you, Susan. Turning my own children against me. What lies have you been feeding them, huh? The only liar here is you, Frank. I turned, shocked to see Diane standing in the doorway. She walked in, her head held high, ignoring the whispers that erupted around us. Frank's face paled. Diane, what are you? I'm here to set things right, she said, coming to stand beside me. To tell the truth about everything you've done. Frank's charm evaporated, replaced by a desperate anger. You don't know what you're talking about, both of you. You're just bitter, jealous. Enough! Claire's shout silenced the room. She stood tall, tears in her eyes, but determination on her face. I've heard enough. Dad, I want you to leave, now. Frank looked around wildly, seeking an ally and finding none. His gaze landed on me, filled with a hatred that made me flinch. This isn't over, he snarled. You think you can turn everyone against me? I'll destroy you, Susan. I'll take everything. As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I felt my knees go weak. But before I could fall, I felt arms around me. Claire on one side, Mike on the other, holding me up. The room buzzed with shocked conversations, but all I could focus on was my children's steady presence. We'd done it. We'd stood up to Frank together. But as the adrenaline faded, fear crept in. Frank's threat echoed in my ears. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a war. And I knew, looking at my children's faces, that the real fight was yet to come. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart. We'd weathered this storm, but at what cost? And what would Frank do next, now that he had nothing left to lose? As the party continued around us, subdued but determined, I clung to my children, wondering if I had the strength for the battle ahead. But looking at their faces, Claire's quiet resolve, Mike's protective stance, I knew I had no choice. For them, I would find the strength. For them, I would fight with everything I had. The days following Claire's graduation party blurred together in a whirlwind of emotions and activity. Frank's dramatic exit and threats lingered in the air like a toxic cloud, poisoning what should have been a time of celebration. I found myself jumping at every phone call, every knock at the door, wondering if this would be the moment Frank made good on his promise to destroy us. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when everything came to a head. I was at my desk trying to focus on a web design project when my phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Mom, there's a moving truck outside Dad's house. What's going on? My heart raced as I dialed Frank's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic rising, I called my lawyer. Susan, he said, his voice grave, I've just received notice. Frank's filed for bankruptcy and is contesting the divorce settlement. He's claiming you hid assets and manipulated him into an unfair agreement. The room spun around me. That's ridiculous. He's the one who... I know, my lawyer interrupted, but he's playing hardball. We need to move fast. As I hung up, another text came through, this time from Mike. Mom, Dad's here. He's taking stuff from the garage. Says it's his. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and raced out the door. The short drive to our old house felt like an eternity. When I pulled up, I saw Frank loading boxes into a battered pickup truck, Mike standing nearby with clenched fists. Frank, I shouted, slamming my car door. What do you think you're doing? He turned, a smirk on his face that made my blood boil. Just taking what's rightfully mine, Susie. You should be familiar with that concept. You have no right, I hissed, stepping between him and the truck. The court, Frank sneered, is going to hear all about how you've been hiding money, turning the kids against me. How does it feel, Susan, to have your whole world turned upside down? Mike moved to my side, his voice shaking with anger. Stop it, Dad. Just stop. Frank's face softened for a moment, looking at our son. Mike, you don't understand. Your mother... I understand perfectly, Mike interrupted. I understand that you're a liar and a thief. The raw hurt that flashed across Frank's face almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. You've made your choice, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Now leave, before I call the police. For a moment, I thought he might lash out. But then, Deflating, Frank climbed into the truck. "This isn't over," he muttered as he drove away. As the dust settled, I felt the adrenaline drain from my body, leaving me shaky and weak. Mike wrapped an arm around me, supporting me as we walked back to the house. Inside, we found Claire and my mother, Evelyn, waiting anxiously. "I called Grandma," Claire explained, her eyes wide with worry. Evelyn stepped forward, enveloping me in a hug. "Oh, Susan," she murmured, "I'm so sorry you're going through this." As we all sat around the kitchen table, the reality of our situation sank in. Frank's actions threatened everything: our home, Claire's college fund, our very stability. "What are we going to do?" Claire asked, her voice small. I looked around at my family, my brave, resilient children, my supportive mother, and felt a surge of determination. "We're going to fight," I said firmly. "Together." Evelyn reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Susan, I've been thinking, why don't you and the kids move back into the family home? It's paid off, plenty of room. It would give you some breathing space while you sort this out." The offer stunned me. "Mom, I couldn't possibly." "You can and you will," Evelyn insisted. "It's time this family stood together against Frank's bullying." As I looked at the hopeful faces of my children, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Frank might have declared war, but he had underestimated the strength of our family bond. "Okay," I said, nodding slowly. "Okay, let's do it." In that moment, surrounded by love and support, I knew that no matter what Frank threw at us next, we would face it head on. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, I truly believed we could win. 6 months after moving into my mother's family home, I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the warm chatter of women who had become my lifeline. What had started as informal coffee meetings to discuss our shared experiences with manipulative ex-partners had blossomed into a full-fledged support group. Today, we were celebrating our first official meeting as a registered nonprofit organization. As I poured coffee for Carol, my eyes drifted to the window, where I could see Claire helping Mike with his law school applications. My heart swelled with pride. Despite everything Frank had put us through, my children had not just survived but thrived. The doorbell rang, and I excused myself to answer it. My breath caught in my throat when I saw Frank standing there, looking older and more haggard than I remembered. "Susan," he said, his voice lacking its usual bravado, "can we talk?" For a moment, I was tempted to slam the door in his face, but the strength I'd found over these past months steadied me. 5 minutes, Frank. That's all you get." We stepped onto the porch, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lawn. "I heard about your support group," Frank began, shuffling his feet, "and about Mike's plans for law school. I wanted to say I'm proud of you all." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Frank sighed heavily. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy too. I realize now how much damage I've done. To you, to the kids, to myself." "Why are you telling me this, Frank?" I asked, my voice steady. He met my eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse there. "Because I owe you an apology, a real one. What I did was unforgivable, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I see it now. All of it." I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. "Thank you for saying that, Frank. It means more than you know." He nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for the kids. It's not much, but it's a start. I want to make things right, if I can." As I took the envelope, our fingers brushed, and I was struck by how little I felt. The anger, the hurt, the bitterness, it had all faded, replaced by a calm strength I'd never known I possessed. "You can start by being there for them," I said. "Really being there. No more games, no more lies." Frank's eyes welled with tears. "I'd like that, if they'll let me." As he turned to leave, I called out, "Frank?" He paused, looking back. "I forgive you, not for you, but for me, for our family." The smile he gave me was small but genuine. As I watched him walk away, I realized this was the closure I'd been seeking all along. Back inside, I was greeted by the concerned faces of my support group. "Everything okay?" Carol asked, squeezing my arm. I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Everything's perfect." Later that evening, as Claire, Mike, and I sat around the dinner table with my mother, I looked at the faces of the people I loved most in the world. We had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. "I have an announcement," I said, my heart full. I've decided to go back to school. I want to get my degree in social work. The table erupted in cheers and congratulations. As Claire hugged me tight and Mike grinned with pride, I caught my mother's eye. She nodded, a knowing smile on her face. In that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Frank's betrayal had nearly broken us, but in piecing ourselves back together, we had created something even stronger. A family bound not just by blood, but by choice, by resilience, and by an unshakable love. As I looked around at my children, my mother, and thought of the women in my support group, I realized that this right here, was my happy ending. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect resolution, but something real and hard-won, a life rebuilt on my own terms, surrounded by love and support. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited about what the future held. I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, scanning the crowded ballroom. The charity fundraiser buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but I felt utterly alone. That is, until a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Emily, is that you?" I turned to see Joshua, my old friend from nursing school. His warm smile instantly put me at ease. "Joshua, what are you doing here?" He chuckled, raising his champagne flute. "Supporting a good cause, same as you. It's been too long, Em. How've you been?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. I grimaced, seeing my sister's name on the screen. "Sorry, I should take this." Joshua nodded, concern etching his features. "Everything okay?" I stepped away, answering the call. "Hello, Karen. Emily, where are you? We're all waiting at Mom's for dinner. You promised you'd be here." I closed my eyes, willing myself not to snap. "Karen, I told you last week I had this fundraiser tonight. I can't make it." "You never have time for family anymore," Karen scolded. "Mom's not getting any younger, you know. The least you could do is show up for dinner once in a while." "I'm hanging up now," I said, my voice tight. "I'll call Mom tomorrow." I ended the call, my hands shaking. When I turned back, Joshua was watching me with concern. "Family troubles?" he asked gently. I nodded, fighting back tears. "They're always on my case about not being around enough, but when I am there, they criticize everything I do. I can't win." Joshua squeezed my arm. "I'm sorry, Em. That sounds rough." "It's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "How about you? How's life treating you these days?" His expression softened. "Actually, I'm back in town for good. My dad passed away last year, and I'm staying with my mom to help out. My sister Madison's there, too." "Oh, Joshua, I'm so sorry about your dad," I said. "That must be challenging, living with your mom and sister." He shrugged. "It has its moments. But hey, enough about me. Are you seeing anyone?" I laughed, the sound more bitter than I intended. "No time for dating when you're working 60-hour weeks and fending off family drama." Joshua's brow furrowed. "You deserve better than that, Em. You always were too good for this town." A waiter passed by with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and Joshua snagged two, handing one to me. "Here, eat something. You look like you could use it." As I took a bite, I realized how hungry I was. When was the last time I'd eaten a real meal? "Thanks," I mumbled around a mouthful of food. Joshua grinned. "Some things never change. Remember that time in school when you were so stressed about exams, you forgot to eat for 2 days straight?" I groaned. "Don't remind me. You had to practically force-feed me." "Well, consider this me picking up where we left off," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Someone's got to look out for you, Em." For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like to have someone in my corner again. But reality came crashing back as my phone buzzed once more. Joshua's smile faded. "Your family again?" I nodded, staring at the screen. "I should probably go. They won't stop until I show up." "Wait," Joshua said, touching my arm. "I have an idea. Why don't you come stay with us for a while? We have plenty of room, and it might give you some breathing space from your family." I blinked, stunned by the offer. I couldn't impose like that. "It's not an imposition," he insisted. "Think about it, okay? You deserve some peace." As I wavered, my phone buzzed again. Joshua raised an eyebrow. "What do you say? Want to make a jailbreak?" I looked at my phone, then back at Joshua's kind face. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. "You know what? Let's do it." I stood in my cramped apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes and a lifetime of memories. Joshua's offer to stay with his family still echoed in my mind, a lifeline I desperately wanted to grab. But doubt gnawed at me. Was I really ready to uproot my life? My phone buzzed, Karen again. I ignored it, focusing on folding a sweater. The doorbell rang, startling me. I opened it to find my mother standing there, arms crossed. "Emily," she said, her tone clipped. "We need to talk." I sighed, stepping aside to let her in. "Mom, I told Karen I couldn't make it to dinner. I had a work event." She surveyed the mess of boxes, her eyebrows rising. "What's all this? Are you moving?" "I'm considering it," I admitted. "A friend offered me a place to stay for a while." Mom's face hardened. "A friend? Who? Why haven't we heard about this friend before?" "It's Joshua from nursing school," I explained, bracing myself for her reaction. "We ran into each other at the fundraiser last night." "Joshua?" she scoffed. "That boy who was always distracting you from your studies? I thought you'd outgrown that nonsense." I felt a familiar anger rising. "Mom, I'm a grown woman. I can make my own decisions." "Clearly not," she snapped. "Look at you, ready to run off with the first man who shows you attention. What about your job? Your responsibilities to this family?" "My job is fine," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "And as for family responsibilities, I've been carrying those alone for years. Maybe it's time I did something for myself." Mom's eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're just going to abandon us?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Joshua. "Hey, I'm just checking in. Have you thought more about staying with us?" I looked at my mother, then back at the phone. In that moment, I made my decision. "Actually, yes," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'd love to." Mom's face fell, a mix of hurt and anger. "Emily, think about what you're doing." "I have thought about it," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. "I'm going, Mom. I need this." She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. I leaned against it, my heart racing. What had I just done? Hours later, I stood on Joshua's doorstep, suitcase in hand. He opened the door with a warm smile that instantly calmed my nerves. "Em, you made it," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Come on in. Let me introduce you to everyone." I followed him inside, taking in the cozy living room. An older woman I assumed was Grace, Joshua's mother, sat in an armchair while a younger woman lounged on the couch. "Mom, Madison, this is Emily," Joshua said. "She'll be staying with us for a while." Grace stood, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Welcome, dear. Joshua's told us so much about you." Madison barely looked up from her phone. "Hey!" I shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how intrusive my presence might be. "Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it." Joshua squeezed my shoulder. "Let's get you settled in. I'll show you to your room." As we climbed the stairs, I heard Madison's voice drift up. "How long is she staying exactly?" I froze, but Joshua urged me on. "Don't mind Madison. She'll warm up to you." The guest room was small but comfortable. I sat on the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. Joshua leaned against the doorframe, watching me. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He came and sat beside me, taking my hand. "It's going to be all right, Em. You're safe here." I looked into his kind eyes, feeling a flutter in my chest. For the first time in years, I felt like I might have found a place where I belonged. But as Joshua left me to unpack, I heard raised voices from downstairs. Madison's angry tone cut through the walls. "I can't believe you invited her without asking us first." I sank onto the bed, my momentary peace shattered. What had I gotten myself into? I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of muffled voices downstairs. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back. I was in Joshua's house, hiding from my own family. I dressed quickly and made my way to the kitchen. Joshua was at the stove, flipping pancakes. Grace sat at the table, sipping tea. "Good morning, Emily," Grace said, her tone polite but cool. "I hope you slept well." "I did, thank you," I replied, trying to sound cheerful. "Can I help with anything, Joshua?" He smiled over his shoulder. "Nah, I've got this. Sit down, relax." As I took a seat, Madison burst into the kitchen, already dressed for work. "Mom, have you seen my blue folder? I can't find it anywhere." Grace frowned. "Did you check the study?" "Of course I did," Madison snapped. She glanced at me, her eyes narrowing. "You didn't touch it, did you?" I blinked, taken aback. No, I haven't been in the study." Joshua turned from the stove. "Maddie, come on. Emily just got here yesterday." Madison rolled her eyes. "Whatever. I'm late." She grabbed a piece of toast and stormed out. An uncomfortable silence fell over the kitchen. I cleared my throat. "I should get ready for work, too." "Already?" Joshua asked, disappointment clear in his voice. "I made breakfast." "I'm sorry," I said, standing. "Maybe tomorrow." As I headed upstairs, I heard Grace's voice. Joshua, we need to talk about this arrangement. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. I was already causing problems. At the hospital, I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. But as I was changing an IV, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Mom's furious. What were you thinking? I ignored it, focusing on my patient. But the messages kept coming, a constant reminder of the mess I'd left behind. During my lunch break, I found a quiet corner and called Karen. What do you want? I asked, my voice tight. I want you to come home, she said. This isn't like you, Emily, running off with some guy from your past. It's not like that, I protested. Joshua's just a friend. I needed space. Karen scoffed. Space from what? Your family? Your responsibilities? I felt my anger rising. Yes, actually, space from all of it. Is that so hard to understand? Mom's talking about selling the house, Karen said, her voice suddenly small. She says there's no point in keeping it if you're not coming back. My heart sank. She can't do that. It's been in our family for generations. Then come home and talk some sense into her, Karen pleaded. I ended the call, my head spinning. How had everything gotten so complicated so quickly? When I returned to Joshua's that evening, the house was quiet. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Had to take Mom to a doctor's appointment. There's lasagna in the fridge. Make yourself at home. I heated up the lasagna and sat at the table, feeling more alone than ever. As I ate, I heard the front door open. Madison walked in, looking surprised to see me. Oh, you're here, she said flatly. I forced a smile. Hi, Madison. How was work? She shrugged, opening the fridge. Fine. Where's Mom and Joshua? Doctor's appointment, I said. There's lasagna if you want some. Madison turned, fixing me with a hard stare. Look, I don't know what your deal is with my brother, but this isn't some halfway house for lost souls. We have enough to deal with without you adding to it. I stood, my appetite gone. I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't mean to be a burden. Then why are you here? She challenged. Before I could answer, the front door opened again. Joshua's voice called out, We're home. Madison's expression changed instantly, softening as she went to greet them. I remained in the kitchen, my mind racing. Maybe coming here had been a mistake after all. As I heard Grace's tired voice and Joshua's concerned replies, a realization hit me. I'd traded one family's drama for another's, and I was right in the middle of it all. I'd just finished my morning shift at the hospital when my phone buzzed. It was Joshua. Can you come home right away? It's important. My heart raced as I drove back to the house. Had something happened to Grace? Was Joshua okay? I burst through the front door to find Joshua pacing in the living room. What's wrong? I asked, breathless. He ran a hand through his hair. It's Madison. She just called. She's been offered a 6-month assignment in London. She's leaving tomorrow. I blinked, trying to process this. Tomorrow? But what about Grace? Joshua sank onto the couch. That's the thing. Mom needs someone here during the day. I can't take time off work, and now with Madison gone. The implication hung in the air. I felt a weight settling on my shoulders. You want me to look after Grace? He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I know it's a lot to ask, Em, but you're already here, and you're a nurse. It would just be during the day while I'm at work. I opened my mouth to protest, but at that moment, Grace appeared in the doorway. Joshua? Emily? What's going on? Joshua explained the situation to his mother. I watched Grace's face carefully, noticing how it tightened when he mentioned me caring for her. I don't need a babysitter, Grace said firmly. I'm perfectly capable of looking after myself. Mom, please, Joshua said. It's just for a few months. Emily's a professional. She knows what she's doing. Grace's eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of something. Resentment? Fear? Before she nodded curtly. Fine, if it will make you feel better. As Grace retreated to her room, I turned to Joshua. Are you sure about this? I don't think your mother likes me very much. He squeezed my hand. She'll come around. You'll see. The next morning I woke early to see Madison off. As she loaded her suitcase into the taxi, she pulled me aside. Look, she said, her voice low. I know we got off on the wrong foot, but take care of my mom, okay? She acts tough, but she needs help sometimes. I nodded, surprised by her sudden change in tone. I will. I promise. As the taxi drove away, I felt the full weight of my new responsibility settle over me. I turned to find Grace watching me from the porch, her expression unreadable. The first few days were awkward. Grace barely spoke to me, answering my questions with one-word responses. I tried to give her space, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she resented my presence. On the fourth day, I was preparing lunch when I heard a crash from upstairs. I raced to Grace's room to find her on the floor, a broken vase beside her. "I'm fine," she snapped as I helped her up. "I don't need your help." But as she tried to stand, she winced in pain. "Your ankle," I said. "Let me look at it." She reluctantly allowed me to examine her. "It's just a sprain," I said, "but you should stay off it for a few days." Grace's face crumpled. "I hate this," she whispered, "being weak, needing help." In that moment, I saw past her prickly exterior to the frightened, vulnerable woman beneath. "It's okay to need help sometimes," I said gently. "That's what I'm here for." She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. "Why are you doing this, Emily? You barely know us." I thought about my own family, about the suffocating expectations and constant criticism. "Because everyone deserves kindness," I said simply, "even from strangers." Grace's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she whispered. As I helped her to bed, I felt a shift in our relationship. The ice was beginning to thaw. But that night, as I was cleaning up the kitchen, I overheard Joshua on the phone. I know, he was saying. "I'll be there soon. I just need to make sure Emily has everything under control here." I froze, my heart pounding. Who was he talking to, and where was he going so late? As I heard the front door close behind him, I was faced with a decision. Did I trust Joshua, or was there something he wasn't telling me? The days blurred together as I juggled my hospital shifts with caring for Grace. Despite our initial breakthrough, she still had moments of stubborn independence that left me exhausted. But it was Joshua's behavior that truly worried me. He'd been coming home later and later, always with a vague excuse about work. Tonight was no different. I glanced at the clock, 11:30 p.m. Grace had been asleep for hours, and I was fighting to keep my eyes open. The front door creaked open, and Joshua stumbled in. I rose from the couch, ready to confront him, but stopped short. The scent hit me first, a cloying, floral perfume that definitely wasn't mine. "Em?" Joshua slurred, squinting at me. "What are you still doing up?" I crossed my arms, trying to keep my voice steady. "I could ask you the same thing. Where have you been, Joshua?" He waved a hand dismissively. "Work stuff. You wouldn't understand. Work stuff that leaves you reeking of perfume?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Joshua's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" Before I could respond, Grace's voice called from upstairs. "Joshua? Is that you?" He shot me a warning look before heading up to his mother's room. I sank back onto the couch, my mind racing. What was going on? The next morning, I cornered Joshua in the kitchen before he left for work. "We need to talk about last night," I said firmly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Em, I told you it was just work." "Until midnight? With someone wearing perfume?" I pressed. Joshua's face hardened. "You're reading too much into this. I thought you trusted me." The words stung. I do. But you're not giving me much to work with here, Joshua." He grabbed his keys, heading for the door. "I don't have time for this. I'll be late again tonight. Don't wait up." As the door slammed behind him, I felt a familiar sense of dread settling in my stomach. Was I making a mistake by staying here? My shift at the hospital was a blur of worried thoughts and second-guessing. When I returned home, I found Grace in the living room, looking troubled. "Emily," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Can we talk?" I sat beside her, concern mounting. "Of course. What's wrong?" Grace twisted her hands in her lap. "It's about Joshua. I think he might be in some kind of trouble." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "I overheard him on the phone last night," she confessed. "He was arguing with someone about money, a lot of money." The pieces started falling into place, the late nights, the secrecy, the smell of perfume. Was Joshua involved in something illegal? "Grace," I said carefully, "has Joshua ever had problems with gambling or drugs?" She shook her head vehemently. "No, never. But lately he's been so distant, I hardly recognize him anymore." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll figure this out, Grace. I promise." That night, I waited up again, determined to get answers. When Joshua finally stumbled in at 1 a.m., I was ready. "Enough," I said, standing to block his path. "You're going to tell me what's really going on, Joshua. Right now." He glared at me, the scent of alcohol and that same perfume wafting off him. "You want to know the truth, Em? Fine, I've been seeing someone. Happy now? The words hit me like a physical blow. You've been cheating? Joshua laughed bitterly. Cheating? We're not even together, Emily. You're just a guest in my house, remember? I recoiled as if slapped. A guest? Is that all I am to you? His expression softened slightly. I didn't mean. But I'd heard enough. I pushed past him, racing up to my room. As I threw my belongings into a suitcase, tears blurring my vision, I was faced with an impossible choice. Do I stay and confront Joshua about his lies? Do I leave and abandon Grace when she needs me most? Or is there another option I haven't considered yet? As I zipped up my suitcase, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same after tonight. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. By morning, I'd made a decision. I couldn't leave. Not yet. I owed it to Grace to get to the bottom of this. As I made my way downstairs, I heard hushed voices from the kitchen. I paused, listening. You can't keep this up, Joshua, Grace was saying, her voice strained. Emily deserves to know the truth. Mom, please, Joshua pleaded. I'm handling it. I stepped into the doorway, making them both jump. Handling what, exactly? Joshua's face paled. I can explain. Then explain, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Because I'm done with the lies and the sneaking around. I want the truth, Joshua, all of it. He glanced at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. With a deep sigh, Joshua began to speak. I'm in trouble, big trouble. I got involved with some people I shouldn't have. They loaned me money, and now they want it back, with interest. My heart sank. How much? Joshua's voice was barely a whisper. $200,000. The room spun. I gripped the doorframe for support. Why? What could you possibly need that much money for? It was for Mom's treatments, he said, looking at Grace. The insurance wouldn't cover everything, and I was desperate. Grace reached for his hand. Oh, Joshua, you should have told me. I felt a surge of anger. You should have told both of us. Instead, you've been lying and sneaking around for months. And the woman you've been seeing? Joshua winced. She's connected to the people I owe. She's been trying to help me find a way out. By having an affair? I spat. It's not like that, he protested. I never... A sharp knock at the door cut him off. Joshua's face drained of color. They're here, he whispered. Before I could react, two men in dark suits pushed their way into the kitchen. The larger one, a hulking figure with a scar across his cheek, fixed his gaze on Joshua. Time's up, pretty boy, he growled. Where's our money? Joshua stumbled back. I just need a little more time. The man's hand shot out, grabbing Joshua by the collar. You're out of time. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Let him go. The man turned, eyeing me with amusement. And who might you be, sweetheart? I'm the one who's going to pay Joshua's debt, I heard myself say. The room fell silent. Joshua gaped at me. No, you can't. I can, and I will, I said firmly. I turned to the men. I have property. It's worth more than what Joshua owes. I'll sign it over to you today if you leave him alone. The scarred man released Joshua, his interest piqued. Property, huh? Where? I rattled off the address of my family's beach house, a place I'd inherited years ago but never used. The man pulled out his phone, tapping away. After a tense moment, he nodded. All right, sweetheart. You've got a deal. We'll be in touch with the paperwork. As quickly as they'd arrived, the men were gone. Joshua slumped against the counter, his face ashen. Emily, he choked out. I can't let you do this. That house is just a house, I finished. Your life is worth more. Grace enveloped me in a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving my son. As she released me, I locked eyes with Joshua. The relief on his face slowly gave way to shame. I'm so sorry, he began. For everything. I never meant. I held up a hand, cutting him off. Don't. Just don't. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the kitchen. As I climbed the stairs to my room, my legs felt like lead. I'd just given up my inheritance, my safety net, for a man who'd lied to me for months. Closing my bedroom door, I leaned against it and slid to the floor. What had I done? And more importantly, where did I go from here? I spent the next few days in a daze, going through the motions at work and avoiding Joshua as much as possible at home. The weight of my decision to give up my beach house pressed heavily on my chest. But it was the betrayal that truly suffocated me. On the third day, as I was changing Grace's bandages, she took my hand. Emily, we need to talk about what happened. I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about, she insisted. What you did for Joshua, it was more than anyone could have asked for. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. I didn't do it for Joshua. I did it for you, Grace, and for myself. I couldn't live with the guilt if something had happened to him. Grace squeezed my hand. You're a better person than all of us put together. But Emily, you can't keep running from this. You need to confront Joshua. As if summoned by his name, Joshua appeared in the doorway. Em, can we talk, please? I looked at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. With a deep breath, I followed Joshua to the living room. He paced nervously, running his hands through his hair. Emily, I don't even know where to start. What you did. I don't want your repayment, I said, my voice cold. I want the truth. All of it. Now. Joshua sank onto the couch, his shoulders slumped. You're right, you deserve the whole truth. He took a deep breath. I never had an affair. The woman you smelled on me, she was a loan shark. I was meeting her to try and negotiate more time. I felt a flicker of relief, quickly extinguished by anger. So you lied about having an affair to cover up your gambling debts? How is that any better? It's not, he admitted. I was a coward. I thought if you believed I was cheating, you'd leave. It would be easier than admitting how badly I'd screwed up. Easier for who? I demanded. Do you have any idea what you put me through? What you put your mother through? Joshua's eyes filled with tears. I know I hurt you both. I was desperate and scared, and I made one bad decision after another. But Emily, you have to believe me when I say I never stopped caring about you. I stood up, my hands shaking. Caring about me? You lied to me for months. You let me believe I was crazy for suspecting you. You were going to let me walk away thinking you'd betrayed me. I know, he whispered, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Something inside me snapped. All the pain, the betrayal, the sacrifices I'd made came rushing to the surface. You know what, Joshua? I don't care about your regrets. I don't care about your excuses. I'm done. I stormed upstairs, throwing open my closet and pulling out my suitcase. As I started throwing clothes into it, Joshua appeared in the doorway. Emily, please, he begged. Don't go. We can work this out. I whirled on him. Work what out? The fact that you lied to me? That you put your entire family at risk? That I had to give up my inheritance to save your sorry ass? I'll find a way to pay you back, he promised. Every penny. Just please, don't leave. I zipped up my suitcase, my resolve hardening. It's not about the money, Joshua. It's about trust, and you shattered mine into 1,000,000 pieces. As I brushed past him, he grabbed my arm. Em, I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't go. I jerked away from him, my voice ice cold. If you ever loved me, you'll let me go. Now. With that, I walked out of the room, down the stairs, and out the front door. As I threw my suitcase into my car, I heard Grace calling my name. But I couldn't look back. I couldn't let them see me break. As I drove away, tears streaming down my face, I realized I had nowhere to go. I'd given up everything for a man who'd lied to me from the start. Where did I go from here? And more importantly, how did I start rebuilding the life I'd so thoroughly destroyed? 6 months had passed since I'd driven away from Joshua's house, leaving behind a life I thought I wanted. I'd spent those months rebuilding, rediscovering who I was without the weight of others' expectations. I stood on the porch of my new home, a modest cottage by the sea. It wasn't the beach house I'd given up, but it was mine, bought with my own hard-earned money. As I sipped my morning coffee, my phone buzzed. Joshua's name flashed on the screen. With a deep breath, I answered. Hello, Joshua. M. His voice cracked. I need to see you, please. Part of me wanted to hang up, to continue the silence I'd maintained these past months. But another part, the part that had grown stronger, knew it was time to face this. All right, I said. Meet me at the pier in an hour. As I waited by the weathered railings, watching the waves crash against the shore, I saw Joshua approach. He looked older, worn down by the weight of his mistakes. Emily, he said, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. What do you want, Joshua? He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out an envelope. This is for you. It's not everything, but it's a start. I've been working 2 jobs, trying to pay you back for the beach house. I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Joshua, I told you, it wasn't about the money. I know, he said, his voice breaking, but I had to do something. Emily, I've been in therapy. I'm trying to be better, to understand why I did what I did. I know I hurt you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I was hoping maybe we could start over. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the man I'd once cared for, the friend I'd trusted, but I also saw the lies, the betrayal, the pain he'd caused. No, Joshua, I said softly. We can't start over. Too much has happened. His face fell, but he nodded. I understand. I miss you, Em. We all do. Mom asks about you all the time. A pang of guilt hit me. How is Grace? She's doing better, he said. The treatments are working. She'd love to see you. I took a deep breath, feeling the sea air fill my lungs. I'd like that, but Joshua, you need to understand something. I'm not coming back, not to you, not to that life. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know. I just hoped. Hope isn't enough, I said gently. We both need to move forward. I've found my path, Joshua. I hope you find yours. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a reminder for my evening class. I'd enrolled in a nursing leadership program, determined to advance my career on my own terms. Joshua noticed the notification. You're going back to school? I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. I am. It's time I focused on my own dreams. A small smile crossed his face. You always were the smart one, Em. I'm happy for you. Really. As we said our goodbyes, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, they were still there, but they no longer defined me. I walked back to my cottage, my steps light. Inside, I looked at the vision board I'd created, filled with my goals and dreams. In the center was a quote I'd chosen. The best revenge is living well. I smiled, tracing the words with my finger. I'd given up so much for Joshua, but in doing so, I'd found myself. I'd discovered a strength I never knew I had, a resilience that couldn't be broken by lies or betrayal. As I prepared for my class, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was different from the one who'd fled Joshua's house 6 months ago. She was stronger, wiser, and finally, truly happy. I picked up my books, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. I'd learned the hard way that the only person I could truly rely on was myself. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. As I locked my door and headed out into the evening, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The old Emily was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim it. Whatever came next, I was ready. This was my story now, and I was finally the one writing it.